Honesty, passion, experience. It's Timberwolves Explosion, hosted on the Paladinolive network. And now, your host, Paladino Joey. Hello again, Timberwolves fans. Are you ready for the explosion of Timberwolves basketball? I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Timberwolves Explosion is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I thank each and every one of you once and always for downloading and listening to this show. It is a pretty good pleasure to be back in with you once again today as we are ready for our annual Granddaddy of them all, State of the Timberwolves 2024. Well, those of you that have been around for many years listening to the show, thank you very much. Anybody that's new, well, the routine for this one is usually the first segment. It's kind of putting a bow on the 2023-2024, in this case, a season. Segment number 2 is looking at the future, the draft, and free agency. Segment number 3 is fan interaction, maybe some polls and all of that. So hopefully I can get that up and running. But, okay, so at the time I'm recording this segment, so of course I'm going to do a segment 1.5 where I talk about the NBA Finals. I'm pretty biased in my on who I'd like to win the NBA Finals, but so again, segment 1.5 will be the NBA Finals review, because I was told many years ago by Wayne Hunt, Hank McCoy, of course the alpha dog of the Courtside podcast, who's been on hiatus forever, unfortunately. Hopefully they come back very soon, one of these days, coming in out of Australia. The show should be about the Timberwolves. And yeah, I agree and I understand, so I figured I created segment 1.5 rather than babbling on for an hour. That's one thing me and Marcus did years ago in the past, like many years ago. We would babble on and on about the finals, and it was like maybe like the first half of the show sometimes, and it's like, you know what I mean? So maybe just a small little 10 to 15 minute conversation about the finals, sometimes only 5 minutes, depending on, like, maybe like last year's was pretty short. This year's, well, right now, at the time I'm recording segment number 1, game 2 is flashing in the background here in the second quarter. Basically, at the moment, Celtics up by just 1 point here after Tatum appears to have an and one ready to rock and roll. So that's good. Game number 1 was a pretty good butt kicking by the Celtics, but yeah, there you go. So that was nice. The Mavericks made it a little cuter in the end. Okay, that's the end of finals talk here in segment number 1, but just telling you where I'm at here. The champion has not been determined yet, even though I don't know. Hopefully game 1 was an indicator as to who's going to win. I'm not a fan of like, oh, well, we lost to the eventual champion. Screw the Mavericks. I don't want them to win. No. And no, I did not record a wrap-up game. I just figured, we're close enough to State of the Timberwolves. I wanted to, but I was kind of not in the mood, and then I got too busy, and da-da-da-da-da, so you get the idea. It rained so much that it's like I don't have any energy, like grass is growing way too much. It's stupid. Enough about that. Let's get to the actual Timberwolves. I've already screwed up this show so far. 3 minutes of whatever you call this. Okay, it's basketball related for the most part, right? So, yes, putting a bow on a season where the Timberwolves got to the conference finals and then hit a wall, unfortunately, which sucks. But that's the way things have been going on here in Minnesota for far too long. Hopefully we can get a little Minnesota Twins magic circa 91 and earlier, where you actually get to the final round and win it, which would be great because obviously, historically we've seen teams going back to the 87 Vikings. I think I kind of lost track of what I was talking about last time when I got into that. But yeah, 87 Vikings. Unfortunately, the drop ball at the goal line, which would have tied things up, possibly, and sent the game to overtime against the Washington Redskins, as they were called at the time, of course. Vikings lost in heartbreaking fashion there. Another one of those tough East Coast teams. Vikings just can't win on the road in those games in the playoffs. They just don't, ever. It's stupid. Lose the NFC title game, and the Redskins went on to win the Super Bowl comfortably over a not as nearly as good Denver team, which again is heartbreaking. Vikings would have probably won that Super Bowl. Luckily, the Twins did win in, like a month earlier, or a few months earlier, in '87. They won the entire enchilada as a nice underdog, and they did also won again in '91. The North Stars lost. They got to the finals, but lost in '91 to an incredibly talented Pittsburgh Penguins team. But ever since then, of course, it's been disappointment and heartbreak. It took 7 years. Vikings got to the conference final, heartbreaking fashion, losing to the Atlanta Falcons, so on and so forth. I know I'm going on too long here with this. But yeah, Vikings lost 40-0 to the Giants in 2000. And then the Timberwolves again, or no, the Wild got to the conference finals, looked so good, and then finally ran into a team that they were favored and got swept. It was ridiculous. Absolutely bullcrap. Timberwolves actually had home court advantage over the LA Lakers in the conference finals. Oh my God, could it happen? Cassell's back goes out, Sam Cassell, and of course the Timberwolves end up not getting past the hated Lakers, who ended up losing to the Detroit Pistons anyway in the finals. But the Wolves looked awfully good against those Detroit Pistons in the 2 games they played against each other earlier in the year. Could have been a favorable matchup for the Timberwolves, and unfortunately we will never know how that would have turned out, because everybody's 50-ish now. Not everybody, but yeah, pushing 50 now, unfortunately. That's our generation, Vince and Stu and Hank McCoy and others out there that may be listening from Generation X. So, yeah, that's kind of how things went, unfortunately. Timberwolves finally get to the conference finals 20 years later. We'll talk about that again as we get to the end of this segment much later. Who else? Yeah, the Vikings guy had multiple opportunities again. 2009 was an absolute heartbreak in New Orleans. Couldn't hang on to the bleeping ball. Otherwise, they would have beaten the Saints comfortably. And then in 2017, the Vikings got destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles after the Minneapolis Miracle, because we were too excited. Some people kind of saw this Dallas series, which the Timberwolves, of course, lost in 5 games. We were the Toronto Blue Jays and Detroit Tigers to the Twins in '87 and '91. That's basically what we were. Again, I don't think Dallas wins the finals or anything, but maybe they already have when you're listening here. I don't think so, though. After, again, like an emotional series with Denver that was so back and forth, the Timberwolves survive it, but then, just what the heck. We run into a team that everybody thought we were going to win, and of course we didn't. Sorry for the noise. I got the windows open. It's nice out, which, it's better than being burning up here. Sorry for the noise. Stupid helicopter. But, I don't know. They're looking for the Mavericks for stealing that series from us, I guess. I don't know. But let's get to the actual wrap-up here. Sorry I'm dragging this out, but I guess it is all Timberwolves related one way or another. Kind of early reference here as well. Karl Anthony Towns missed from March 4th, the Portland game where he played 21 minutes, and then returned against Atlanta on April 12th. A pretty speedy recovery from a meniscus tear. Pretty remarkable. And this was with surgery rather than like cutting off some like extra part of the cartilage, which is like one of the dumbest things you could ever do. Okay, go back and play, and then your knee when you're like 33, 34 is like done, and he ends up being like, toast, almost like microfractures, like a microfracture situation, which happened to players in the past. I couldn't play anymore. It was really sad. Sam Mitchell and Terrell Brandon, respectively, when you talk about that conversation. Very sad for those guys. It's like you went from a good player to just couldn't play anymore. It's over. I can't even imagine the pain and immobilization of all that. So Karl, of course, wisely going with the surgery, and he still ended up coming back in just like 5 weeks. Incredible recovery. So huge credit there for Karl Anthony Towns, who over the course of the season averaged 21.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 3 assists. A solid season. Obviously, the numbers down considering like offense is focused more on Karl Anthony Towns. No, on Anthony Edwards. I'm getting them mixed up because of their names, which is pretty dumb. I apologize for that. Of course, we will have our MVP, biggest disappointment and biggest surprise at the end of this segment, and I'd like to hear from you out there as well, what you guys have to say as we head into the fan interaction segment. So I'll make sure I have that posted up there ready to go. Sometimes I like to have that here at the end of this segment, but I'll save it for the fan interaction, I guess. Guess we'll just do it that way. Anthony Edwards did average in 79 games this year. Karl ended up playing 62, which isn't that bad considering a meniscus tear was mixed in that. It's actually not too bad at all. Anthony Edwards. God, all this, Anthony that. At least it's not Anthony Peeler, thank God. 25.9 points a game. Did go to the All-Star game, of course. 5.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists. Awesome numbers by Anthony Edwards. Became more of a focused player. Literally, like, kind of the ball goes through him in a lot of ways without being a ball hog, without being selfish. Though there were some times there's a little bit of that annoying heat check stuff that we saw off and on, but not as bad as previous seasons. It's still there, but it's not as bad. So there's that to talk about. We're going to talk about Clark as well, going into segment number 2, of course. He's part of the future. He's definitely not part of the present, as obviously he had that Achilles tear about 18 months ago now during the college season for UCLA. They was a second-round pick by the Wolves last year. Easily could have been a first-round pick had not had the Achilles tear in the first place. But, Naz Reid winds up getting Sixth Man of the Year. Obviously, great numbers there. Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. So, some awards passed around. Anthony Edwards wound up on the second-team All-NBA. Pretty awesome, to say the least. Second-team All-NBA for Anthony Edwards. So, that was also very exciting, to say the least. Jaden McDaniels, second-team All-Defensive Player. Rudy Gobert, again, Defensive Player of the Year. But, of course, everyone... stuff like that seems to turn players into targets. You know, like the infamous, you can't guard me, MFer, basically, is what Luka Doncic said to Rudy Gobert after his clutch three-pointer. But that was just a bad switch. That should never have happened. That's just bad coaching and bad everything. Just like, what the heck is going on here? So, obviously, as good as Chris Finch was, that wasn't a good moment for Chris Finch or the other guy as well. So, Micah Nori. So, we appreciate him. We'll see what happens with him as possibly getting a job with Cleveland. At the moment, we'll see. There'll probably be updated news before this episode is over regarding him. He's not going to the Lakers, that's for sure. As the Lakers have got their eyes on a very expensive man coming from UConn, winning back-to-back national championships there in Hurley. So, they'll be hurling it up. We'll see if another college coach ends up being a massive bust in the NBA. The one I never understood was Boeheim coming in out of, is that his name? I believe so, or is it Beeline? The one that came from the Michigan Wolverines. Already in his mid to upper 60s. Why? Why would you leave Michigan and then to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers who weren't ready to do anything? It made no sense. He resigned like halfway through his first season. It was the weirdest thing ever. So that made no sense. Beeline, I believe. It made no sense. Absolutely no sense coming from Michigan. Absolutely no sense. That was a weird one. Sorry, I'm a little disoriented here. Let's just get to the actual season wrap-up and such. I've been kind of rambling on and on and on about the just bits and pieces of the season, like Karl Anthony Towns' injury and such. Preseason was what it was. The Timberwolves looked fantastic. We didn't lose a game in the preseason, but kind of like, who cares? And then we lose the season opener in Toronto because the Timberwolves never win in Toronto. And we didn't win in Toronto during the 03-04 season either. And I remember a lot of people being annoyed with that one as well. The Timberwolves had... It was a weird situation. It was one of those, it was one of those stupid matinee games as well, which, I don't know, matinee games always seem to curse Minnesota teams when it comes to the Wild or the Timberwolves. We always suck in them. And then it was like the infamous line, Spree don't like playing in daytime. That was Sam Cassell. So, kind of annoying when you put that together. Timberwolves would then beat the Miami Heat, 106-90. Now, this was October 25th. That's actually my work anniversary as well. October 25th, 2009 and 2010, when I got hired as a temp and then hired as a full employee, and I've been there ever since at Boston Scientific, outside of my second job of the lawn service with my brother. But the Timberwolves would win comfortably 106-90 over the defending Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat. But of course, Jimmy Butthead didn't play in the game because he's just too good for us, He's like, nah, that's okay. Nah, that's okay. Swipe left. I'm out. What a dork. Kevin Love, also inactive. Jimmy Butler had to rest. 2 games into the season and Jimmy Butler's out with resting because, it's just the Timberwolves anyway. Seriously, man. Naz Reid at 25 points. So this was a little bit of a notable game just for that one reason. But another notable, again, the fact that the Timberwolves lost at Toronto, annoying, 97-94. And they ended up, doing a fire sale there, where you got to see Siakam wind up with a pretty good Indiana Pacers team, which would unfortunately lose in a sweep to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, but still a conference final run nonetheless for the Indiana Pacers. Not bad, but again, ran into a wall called the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics. Pardon me, guys. Atlanta, Georgia, that would be Anthony Edwards' hometown, of course. Dominic Wilkins. Even the Atlanta Flames played there years ago before they moved to Calgary. Okay, that's hockey, sorry. The Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks, had a better record than the Timberwolves, and this would be the end of that pretty much right after this. But at this point, the Hawks had a better record, which is crazy. 2-2, the Wolves dropped to 1-2. A terrible game. Terrible defense by the Timberwolves. 127 to 113 on the road. Little did we know we'd be the best defensive team in the league, but we sure as hell didn't look like it in this game. DeJounte Murray, who I hope is the future Timberwolves point guard one way or another. If the Timberwolves do trade Karl Anthony Towns, that is a possible trade target. We'll talk about that in segment number 2. Trae Young is the other possible trade target. We'll see. We'll see if the Hawks would be willing to make a move on one of those two guys. Maybe they should, because some of that highfalutin, high-scoring point guard combinations, I'm still waiting on championships for those type of teams, like the Portland Trail Blazers, like Hardaway and what was the other one? And obviously Chauncey Billups and Nick Van Exel. Those are fun teams to watch, but they never won jack. What was it? Nick Van Exel again, and Damon Stoudemire. Kind of highfalutin, high-scoring offensive point guards, and well, you got to the playoffs. Wahoo! And in some cases, I don't even think that Portland team made the playoffs. They're fun to watch, but they couldn't stop their grandmother. What was it? Terrell Brandon and Chauncey Billups for a while there. That didn't work either. It was stupid. And then Terrell had his microfracture situation. He was never going to play again, but we're like, but we can't guarantee any starting position for Chauncey Billups. So off he went to Detroit and won the NBA title, which was disappointing. Thankfully, the Wolves would wind up with Sam Cassell and use the Terrell Brandon contract to get Sprewell. Yeah, I kind of think we could have done better than that. You could Sprewell. Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on him that aren't really glowing. I wasn't a big fan of his when we traded for him either. I'm sorry to say. It was exciting for a minute, but about 5 minutes in, it's like, whatever. We'll get off that. Anthony Edwards did have 31 points in his hometown, but unfortunately, the Wolves getting whooped by Atlanta. And a lot of us were pretty pissed off and frustrated. How long is Chris Finch going to last? I'm sick and tired of this disappointment. Last year sucked. Like, come on, guys. Come on. I mean, this team was supposed to be like the 4th seed or something last year. Maybe get out of the first round at the very least, and then hopefully build for maybe a conference final run this year. What a coincidence. But we'll get back to that, won't we? Because the Wolves hosted the Denver Nuggets to start the month of November, and it was a completely different season after that. There is no doubt about it. Oh yes, let the fun begin. Ow, ow. I don't really like to do wolves howls. I don't know. If you like to do that, good for you. I be my guest. That's not for me. I'm not going to do that. It was cute and everything back when I was a ticket holder or going to games, and then eventually it's like, okay, it's great. But anyhow, the Timberwolves would lose how many games in November? 2. Then they won every other game in the month of November. It was a completely different vibe. And I mean, it was wonderful. Absolutely freaking wonderful. I mean, we're talking losing to Toronto. Losing to Atlanta. I know they're road games, but what the heck, guys? And then you beat Denver 110 to 89. A possible harbinger of what might be to come later in the season. What a coincidence. 110 to 89. A nice butt kicking of the defending world champions Utah, who beat the crap out of us last year multiple times. mocking us for that what at the time felt like a ridiculously bad trade for Rudy Gobert. Thankfully, again, Conley helped heal bits and pieces of it by getting Tim Connolly for Tim Conley, and again, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We'll see how long he stays in Minnesota. We'll see, at least for the time being. 123.95, jeez. And then the Wolves head to the we host the Boston Celtics, which a lot of us hoped and prayed and thought could be a possible NBA Finals opponent. We're talking way back into the end of November all the way up until, the end of May, a possible NBA Finals opponent, but unfortunately that never did happen. But a 114-109 win over the Boston Celtics, who clearly were the best team in the league at the time, and stayed the best team in the league all the way up to the end here. Then you beat New Orleans 122-100, unbelievable. 117 win, 110 over the Spurs. Stop screwing around, but at least they won. The Spurs clearly not ready to compete. And then two entertaining but a little bit chippy and wild and crazy games against the Golden State Warriors, both in Chase. It's no longer Oracle, but Chase Arena. What the heck was that? Yeah. Anthony Edwards and Draymond Green, who, I don't know, Draymond Green's definitely become a villain with Minnesota here. He's kind of like, what was that guy's name? He used to play for the Todd Bertuzzi for the Vancouver Canucks. He's basically the Todd Bertuzzi to the Timberwolves, Minnesota Wild, whatever that means. But Draymond Green, obviously Anthony Edwards was having some unbelievably great moments in the game, and he was like going past, kind of talking a bit to Draymond Green. Of course, Anthony Edwards got the technical, but Draymond Green didn't. Draymond was saying, "What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?" And it was like just kind of trying to egg Anthony Edwards into getting a second technical or something. And Anthony was just kind of laughing, and he was telling everybody, I'm next, like he's next in line to being one of the best players in the league. Sure looks like it, doesn't it? That game was chippy, 116-110. But again, this is a major turning point. In a lot of ways, it's like good. We're finally burying these obnoxious, arrogant sons of blankety-blank, jackass. I just love the Golden State Warriors. If you listen to the show, you'll over the last 10 years or so, you'll know how much I just love the Golden State. I just love them. I just have nothing but warm feelings about the Golden State Warriors. Just love them. No sarcasm at all, right? Zero. Right. Clang Thompson, who can't shoot anymore, let out his frustration against a guy who was guarding him very physically and kind of I can understand if a guy's draping over you, it can drive you crazy and you get frustrated. Clang Thompson lost his mind, and Jade McDaniels kind of obviously responded, because what are you going to do when the guy's like basically punching you? So, I don't know, both of them got ejected about a minute and a half into the game, and it was one hell of a chippy game. Draymond Green was choking what's-his-face. He got a flagrant foul. He was choking what's-his-face. His arch rival, apparently, in Rudy Gobert. He just hates him so much. Draymond Green ended up getting a suspension for this one. Flagrant foul, suspension. He was choking him. McDaniels, even Naz Reid wound up getting a technical in the game. It was a very chippy start to a game after a lot of frustration just a couple of days earlier. But a solid win for the Timberwolves in a back-and-forth kind of game. We were actually losing this one, but then pulled away from the Warriors at the end of the day, 104-101. Felt great. It felt great to sweep those guys. Karl Anthony Towns this time with 33. Instead of Anthony Edwards. So that was awesome and wonderful. Wasn't Curry missing a lot of shots? No, he didn't even play in the game. What the heck? Curry didn't even play in the game. But yeah, he was missing some shots in the other game, the previous one. But ultimately, the Wolves get the job done. You have a back-to-back with the Phoenix Suns, and the winning streak was over. Hey now, the dream is over. Timberwolves would finally lose their third game of the season, 133-115. It's like, what the heck? It was one of those reality check type of games. Thankfully, again, the Timberwolves would not play this way against Phoenix in the postseason. But the whole regular season, it looked like Phoenix was going to be a nightmare matchup for this Timberwolves club, especially in a game like this. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker made the Wolves look like idiots. And, of course, Devin Booker last season was mocking the Wolves, saying, we play team basketball. Like, you guys are all just a bunch of morons just launching shots and, just kind of, there's just no organization to your offense. But we actually play team basketball. So Devin Booker, that wasn't the meanest thing he's ever said, but boy, oh boy, he is looking for a fight every single time. I swear. I mean, the guy, every game, at least at one point, he's got some bleep talking to do, and it's annoying to watch. And let me tell you, he got on my nerves in that postseason series. And this segment is probably going to be way too long unless I get moving. So, but there is a lot of emotion in this month of November because it looked like the Wolves were a bust of a team in October, the first 3 games of the season, and then everything just took off. The Wolves would win a very close back-and-forth game versus New Orleans and escape 121 to 120 on November 18th. We had a wonderful Thanksgiving week. It feels like $1 million. 11700 win to over the Knicks in Target Center, 17-point win. It beat the bully Philadelphia 76ers 112 to 99 on Drinksgiving, I guess people call it, or Thanksgiving Eve. Of course, you have Thanksgiving off, and then Black Friday. The Wolves would have a huge hangover. I know. I don't like that. I don't like to think about that kind of stuff because it's not that cool. Some of you might think it's cool. I don't think it's that cool. But whatever it is, Friday, November 24th, the Wolves got crushed by the Kings, 124 to 111. That was not a fun night at all. The Wolves had dropped to 11-4, so our 4th loss of the season there. But then another winning streak would come. A Memphis team without Ja Morant, and just kind of like a dead vibe there. 119-97, comfortable win. OKC, an epic battle against another young, talented team that is emerging in the Western Conference and would be a back-and-forth opponent all season with this club. Back and forth all season. The Timberwolves jump up to 13-4. Oklahoma was 11-6 at the time and kind of hanging in there. But, boy, it was a back-and-forth battle all year. But the Wolves would win in an epic battle against this club, 106-103. Would have been a pretty cool Western Conference Finals. I think the Wolves would have won it. Dallas is just a weird matchup. Obviously, 2 fairly veteran guys. Curry. Irving absolutely is a veteran, and I always call him like the guy with the silver arrow, basically. That's what he is. You're in a close game, late in like a Game 7 type of situation. He's got the silver arrow. That's how I have a respect level for Kyrie Irving that's higher than probably most people because of that. I mean, he was the guy that put the silver arrow in the Golden State Warriors, 2016 Golden State Warriors Ganon in Legend of Zelda. I mean, that's impressive. That 3-pointer was the silver arrow, man. The finishing touch. And, one of the most wonderful nights in basketball history. Because Cleveland finally got to end their drought as a city in winning championships going back to the 1960s. And the frickin' 73-win Warriors lost the NBA Finals. So, no GOAT conversation there. Just, nope, sorry. Anyhow, 101-90 win over the Utah Jazz. We're going to keep moving into December as Christmas season was upon us, and the Wolves would just keep winning and winning and winning. 123-117 win against Charlotte. Again, like a game that the Wolves probably would have lost the previous year because we couldn't beat the Hornets for our life. It was stupid and weird. It was weird. Weird. Like Spurs, Hornets, what was it, Detroit? We couldn't beat Detroit the year before. We couldn't beat the Detroit frickin' Pistons. It was like ridiculous. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Are you stupid or something? Yeah, it was the bottom 4 teams. Houston was the other one. But, yep, this was a game like that. A back-and-forth battle with the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte, North Carolina, 123-117. But, yeah, it's like clearly there's a different team. 102-94 win over the Spurs, again on the 6th after 3 days off. 127-103 in Memphis, another butt-kicking there. But then all of a sudden the New Orleans Pelicans had become a team that looked like a little bit of a threat here, especially when Zion Williamson is healthy, which, again, knock on wood, almost never happens. But when he is healthy, he's a murderer. He'll kill the Timberwolves. And I don't know, it's just, well, he's a bad matchup for the Wolves. And McCollum has kind of been, we've been on their vendetta. We've been on his vendetta pretty much his whole career because we passed on him in the draft. That infamous draft where we wound up with Shabazz Muhammad. Yay. Let's see, Shabazz Muhammad or CJ McCollum? Anyone? Greek Freak? Anybody want a Greek Freak or Shabazz Muhammad? Anyone? Anyone's got their hands up? Shabazz? Yeah, I agree with you. Nobody's got their hand up. Yeah, exactly, right? 6th man of the year, Naz Reid would lead the Wolves along with Mike Conley, not Tim, and Karl Anthony Towns. Anthony Edwards would not play in this one. I forget if this was about that. Yeah, I think on the Sacramento game, that's when he had the baby and then missed another day or so. So, I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Anthony Edwards missed a couple games. There's a couple of little things coming up throughout the season. But, yeah, that was way back. What am I talking about? But yeah, New Orleans Pelicans definitely look like a dangerous matchup. Wolves would win against their man. But yeah, see, that's the thing. When the Wolves beat up on the Dallas Mavericks this year, either one or both of the two guys that killed us, Irving and Doncic, were out in these games. So that was the annoying part. And it's like, that was kind of what was sticking in my craw a little bit when everybody was all, a lot of people were like, oh, the Wolves are going to the finals. It's not going to be that hard. It's 5 or 6 games. It's not like I'm like, oh, the Mavericks are going to beat us. But at the same time, I came into the series like thinking, I don't know yet. I just don't know yet. Let's actually beat them first before we get too excited and too happy. And then when we didn't beat them, game in and game out in that damn series, that just, it just kind of showed my fear, I guess. And I wish I didn't have good reason to be scared and frustrated going into that. So this is the one that Kyrie Irving missed. Luka Doncic did wind up at 39. We couldn't guard him, but at the same time, they couldn't guard us either because the Wolves would get 119 and the Mavericks would only get 101. We couldn't guard you, MFer, but we couldn't guard us either, buddy. 117-109 win over the Pacers. Not nearly as dramatic as what would happen on the road later on. This was a solid win against a pretty good team, but they didn't have a good record at the time. Timberwolves are 19-5 at this stage. Absolutely nuts. And unfortunately, this thing is stuck on the Wolves being third in the Western Conference. So even though the Wolves were number 1 at the time, it's just showing because that was the finish. But 19-5 at the time, Pacers were only 13-11. Who'd have thunk that both of these teams would get to the conference finals? Wolves, it looked like a possibility. Indiana, not really, but they did. Beating the Heat later on, December 18th, losing to Philadelphia. That was another end of a streak there because another team that had a matchup that was really rough. A lot of frustration, and this is when Rudy Gobert got in trouble and lost $100,000. I believe was suspended a game as well. Yeah, he was doing the whole money sign. You can hear me. Yeah. Saying, oh, what are you betting on the game? You're placing bets here, basically, to the ref there. I believe that was Foster, if I remember correctly, right? So, yeah, that was a pretty crazy, wild situation there. Ironically, yeah, no technical foul or anything, but yeah, extreme frustrations there. Joel Embiid with 51 points. Joel Embiid with 51 points. The Wolves did beat Philadelphia earlier in the year, but not in this one. 17 of 18 at the free throw line. 20. The guy basically was running players over and over again, and well, he did wind up with 5 fouls, but still 51 points. It was just Wilt Chamberlain. It's not Shaq. It's Wilt Chamberlain. It's the Sixers, Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah, he did play for the Lakers later in his career, but this was the 76ers. Wilt Chamberlain being reincarnated into Joel Embiid against the Timberwolves. It was ridiculous, man. The Wolves would then win at 118-111. See, that's what was good about the Wolves this whole season. It was exciting. Even though you'd have that disappointing night like that against Philadelphia, you'd come back the next day and win against a decent playoff-level team like the Lakers. I mean, that was good. Then you beat Sacramento 110-98 on Christmas Eve, the 23rd. A nice win in Sacramento, by the way. Very impressive. I do believe players were out, but still take advantage. You still, I've seen the Wolves lose with players out as well. But, no, all the main guys were playing in this game, and the Wolves pretty much beat them, except Malik Monk. So, obviously, he's a factor at the end of the day. But a nice, solid win for the Wolves in that one. I'm trying to remember something, but, yeah, nope, it's not the case. But a nice, strong performance by Anthony Edwards, nonetheless. And then you come back against OKC again after the holiday again. What the hell is this? Like, both teams had the holiday here. Both teams had Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, right? I like to call them by their name, not the holidays. No, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, yeah. It's Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Timberwolves did not show up in this one. Then they gave up 129 points. As it was like, oh, crap. Maybe this team really is going to be a threat this year. And they kind of were all season, all frickin' season. They were inching a little bit closer to that number 1 record in the Western Conference. 19-9 were the OKC Thunder after this one. The Wolves still were 22-7, so still a strong spot for Minnesota. But Shea was pretty much unguardable. Chet Holmgren with 20. 4 players had 20 or more for OKC, and Minnesota only had 1. Anthony Edwards at 25. Unfortunately. So that was disappointing. 129-106. That was like maybe these guys are going to give us a hell of a time in the as we get later in the year, and if we were to match up with them in the West Finals or something. at some point. So, yeah, maybe they are a threat. Maybe. Well, we'll find out next year, I guess, possibly. Oh, man. Yeah, another 118-110 win over the Dallas Mavericks again. So it's like, yay, we beat the Mavericks. Yeah, it's like, again, where was this in the playoffs? Well, yeah, where was this in the playoffs? Well, let's see. Doncic, inactive. Kyrie Irving, inactive. That's all you need to know. Other than Anthony Edwards getting 44 points. That's awesome. But that's kind of all I needed to know about that. The other strange thing is how Tim Hardaway, how the heck does he fall out of the rotation? He had 32 points in the game. He was freaking good. And that's why the game was actually close, despite the fact, again, both star players were out. Both star players were out. Can I say it again? So that was another annoying thing. That it just, you know how you get that little knot in your throat when, we played so well against Dallas this year, and then it's like, wait a minute, let me see. Let's see, we beat Dallas. Okay, this guy was out now, and both of them were out in that one. Oh. So you get that little knot in your throat where you're suddenly not nearly as comfortable as you thought you were going against them in the series. And it sucks. It's like, you're better than, even when they're healthy, you're better than the Dallas Mavericks. But you also know it's not as easy as a matchup as you think. And that's what drove me nuts. And again, you can tell I keep rehashing and going back to that series again because, well, it's kind of the main theme, unfortunately, because that's how the season ended. It's still sticking in my craw. And I did not have a review of those last three games. I just didn't. Obviously, the third game was kind of like a worse version of the first two. Guys like P.J. Washington with daggers on in the corner there, and that was disappointing and frustrating. I believe that was the Sunday before Memorial Day. Thankfully, I was able to get a new used bike on Memorial Day. It was later that night. I'm like, I finally found something very similar to the bike that was stolen, heartbreakingly. Very similar, and I was able to get it the next morning. Anyhow, 108-106 win over the Lakers. Solid to wrap up to wrap up 2023. We'd have New Year's Eve off, we being the Timberwolves anyway. 2024, we ring in the new year, which is one of the most annoying phrases of all time. We're the best in the West, but then we lose 2 games to start out 2024. What's up with that? 112-106 loss to the Knicks in New York, though. Okay, whatever. And then a 117-106 loss to Zion Williamson. What a coincidence. Well, gee, what a coincidence. What a coincidence indeed. When Zion Williamson and C.J. McCollum are healthy for the New Orleans Pelicans, that's the other team that could maybe pull off some kind of a weird upset and knock us out in the playoffs if we're not freaking showing up and ready to play. It's really annoying. Houston, terrible matchup for them, not for us. Terrible. 122-95, and it feels good. The Timberwolves, even though Houston was actually kind of a decent team at the time, kind of possible bubble type of team in the playoffs, at the time anyway, before they, basically gave up on the year later in the year, Timberwolves would win by, 122 to 95. Just an absolute butt kicking there. That was awesome. And then you lose to the Mavericks on the 7th of January. 115-108. It's like this annoying matchup that was definitely a problem earlier, like last year. It was a problem. It was an annoying matchup. I'm not all that cocky and comfortable playing against the Dallas Mavericks. Funny. The Timberwolves lost this game. Pretty close, right? They were in it the whole way. 115-108. That sounds very familiar, doesn't it? And you know what else sounds very familiar? Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, 39 minutes each, right? 34 for Luka, 35 for Kyrie. Sound familiar? Anthony Edwards with 36. Great game. But anybody with the Wolves? No. Well, Carl got 24. Carl Anthony Towns, that is. 24. It's okay. It's solid. Now it's Reed with 15, but then all these other players, nothing. Jaden McDaniel, 2 points. Gee, thanks. Thanks, man. Conley, 9 points. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who unfortunately disappeared in parts of the Denver series for them, most of it, son of a gun, and all of the Dallas series. Where was he there? Okay, I think he scored a couple baskets in that series. Delicious. That's kind of good. Sugarcane juicery, huh? Interesting. Kumquat. That's not bad. Okay, that was a free plug. Okay, it's Maya and more. Okay. Yeah, there's a free plug. I don't know. They get enough business. I could use their help. Why don't you tell everybody about Timberwolves explosion there? But of course, none of them care. Probably all those, Yeah, well, those little Richie community people, they don't give a crap about anything outside of their bank account and the car they drive. Yeah, we're woohoo, right? Just love that. Anyhow, enough of my dirty laundry there. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. It's just, see what I mean, though? You see this? A close loss to the Dallas Mavericks. Not even a high score. It wasn't even a high-scoring game. It's not like they blew us out, but they beat us. Yep. 115-108. You know what I mean? And this is before those moves that everybody's like, oh my God, it's the smartest genius thing of all time. You know, what was it? Getting all those guys. Yeah. See, Lively didn't even play in the game. Lively was not lively in the game. And yeah, they didn't have like Washington from the Hornets, who was actually a huge problem against the Wolves at the time as well. It's like, well, we were like, oh, you know, they were built to beat us, the Denver Nuggets, you know, like the Cyclops said. The Cyclops, him being, of course, yeah, that guy, Nikola Jokic. Yeah, it looked like Dallas was kind of built to beat us, but I don't know if they're built to beat Boston. We'll see. Wolves would win comfortably over Orlando, 113-92. Another game we might have lost last year. The Timberwolves did lose in Boston, 127-120. That scared me a little bit, but it's not like we got blown out. But still, we did give up 127 points. So this is me gauging the possibility of the thought of the Wolves getting to the NBA Finals. But again, it kind of reeks of Dallas again. You know why? Jason Tatum, 45 points. Jaylen Brown, 35 points. Anthony Edwards, 29. Carl, 25. You know, it's good. Naz Reid, 19. Actually, a really good game there with 3 blocks. Epic game, but the Wolves didn't win, though. It went to overtime. The Wolves actually blew this one. The Wolves were winning this game. So that's what was disappointing more than anything. The Wolves were winning this game. We blew it later as things went on. And went to OT, and Boston just said, get the heck out of here. Get out of here. Get off my lawn, basically, which is what supposedly Massachusetts people say, get out of my yard. That's pretty much what happened there. Comfortable win over Portland on the 12th of January. I better keep moving. 116-93. Epic battle with the Clippers, 109-105. Great fun battle. Great matchup with these guys over the course of the season with the Clippers. It was fun. Very fun back and forth there. A win in Detroit. And again, a close, annoying game, but the Wolves would survive, where last year they didn't. 124-117 win. Memphis, another easy one. 118-103. OKC Thunder, 102-97 loss to OKC Thunder in Target Center, which had a lot of us kind of, you know, we started getting that little knot in our throat at that point. It's like, uh-oh. Well, now Oklahoma City's right on our butt. You know, objects in our mirror closer than you can appear, or closer than they appear, sorry. 29-13 versus a 30-12. Ooh, like we're the 30-12, thankfully, but ooh. Remember that 5-game lead? Oh, you know, that 3-game? Oh, no, now it's 1. Yeah, it's a little bit scary, you know, like a little bit getting scary a little bit. And then you lose to the Charlotte bleeping Hornets. This was a big one. Or a lot of people were like, really? We lost to the Charlotte Hornets. 10-31. 10-31. And this is just after losing to OKC by a narrow margin and getting that real close. So there was a lot of frustration. People were pretty pissed off in this one. I mean, pissed. Fans and all that. PJ Washington with only 12, but he was still a huge pain in the butt down the stretch. Brandon Miller with 27. Miles Bridges with 28. Karl Anthony Towns did have 62 points in the game, which was absolutely wonderful. But it's like we got too excited about Karl Anthony Towns' incredible number there. Beautiful statistic and everything. But it felt like we got too excited about that and then kind of lost track of what we're doing out there. And we lost. And it was stupid. And that was kind of the conversation in the background. So this was one of those, like, what the hell are we doing kind of games. That's pretty much what that was. Got to keep moving, sorry. Beat the Washington Wizards 118-107. Brooklyn 96-94. And we lost to the flippin' Spurs. We actually lost to the Spurs once this year. Another team with their 10th win of the year. 10-36. Need I say more? I mean, dare I say again, what the hell are we doing out here, guys? So this was a very frustrating week for the Wolves late in January. Had a lot of us getting a little worried. And this is when some doubt started to set in a little bit with some of the fans. But you figured, okay, we're still there. We're still hanging around. We could still probably get to the conference final and hope for the best. And then you go to OKC with a 107-101 win. That was a beautiful, beautiful feeling. It felt so much better. I mean, it felt like $1 million because just like a week and a half ago, we'd lost in Target Center to OKC, which is like, crap, now we lost our home court advantage and everything. Nope, we're taking it right back. Get out of our way. Get out of our yard. 33 to yep. Well, so we took a 1-game lead in the West after that one. Crushed the Mavericks 121-87. Oh, where were these? Right, where were these? Yeah, well, Kyrie Irving. Let's see. Kyrie Irving inactive. Where's that other guy? Luka Doncic inactive. Funny. See, that's why the Wolves won the series versus the Mavericks. And the one game both of those guys played, they both got 35-ish and beat us in a close game. Which, again, sounds insanely familiar, doesn't it? Except for Game 4. Wolves would lose 108-106 to Orlando. Another what the hell are we doing game. You lose 129-123 to the Bulls, but before that, Wolves crushed Houston again. Then you go into Milwaukee, a team that is kind of in disarray. Not sure why the hell they'd fire their coach. Didn't make any sense. It was weird. The Wolves would win comfortably in Milwaukee, 129-105. That stunned a lot of us in early February. That was pretty cool. February the 8th already, as we're trying to move a little faster. 121-100 win over the Clippers. That was awesome. A 121-109 win over the Blazers. Nice back-to-back. See, like none of those back-to-back losses. Then you beat the Blazers even worse, 128-91. Wow. 44-point first quarter, 44-14, 30-point game, and the game was basically over there. Though we still played... a lot of guys still played about 30 minutes and up in the game, which is funny, but Conley at least got to do a little bit of miniature load management. But over the course of the season, as things would wear on and Conley would get more and more worn down, we'd start wondering more and more why there's no real suitable replacement for Conley out there. We would eventually trade for looks like he's not on the line. Yeah, there he is, Monte Morris. We did get him at this point already in that trade. But still, we were all kind of like, okay, he's okay, but we needed more of a long-term solution, I think, at the point guard position, and we will be talking about that in segment number 2 in a big way. That's one of the main themes, I think, at the end of the day. Wolves will then lose to Milwaukee. Like, we went in Milwaukee in impressive fashion, and then come back after the All-Star break and lose to the Bucks, 112-107. That was annoying. We then crushed the Bucks really bad, beat the Spurs in a close one, and beat Memphis in a fairly close game as well. But at least end February with a 3-game win streak. And then lose to the Kings again, 124-120 to start out the month of March. A close loss to the Clippers as well, 89-88. As the lead in the West was pretty much gone at this point. That was extremely frustrating. And there's the 119-114, an actual close game against the Blazers, which is like a novelty. I mean, these were bad all the time. Karl Anthony Towns would have that meniscus tear right there. Only 21 minutes in the game, 14 points. He was playing pretty well. Anthony Simons would get 34 in the game. Great game for him. And then a guy named Dupe Reith, who Vince Germano is in love with as well. Vince Germano is in love with Dupe Reith, and he's got Australian ties there. Does Dupe Reith? Yeah, you can kind of feel the Aussie accent in that name a little bit. Dupe Reith, mate. You can feel it a little bit. 26 points for him. And then, of course, again, Karl Anthony Towns, meniscus, but miraculously would return in only 5 weeks after surgery. Usually that can take 2 to 3 months. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, great! We had this opportunity to do something. Now Carl's done. We're screwed." No, he wouldn't be done, and he'd be a nice factor against Phoenix and against the against the Denver Nuggets. But unfortunately, not so much against Dallas. Not really anybody was. And then an epic back and forth battle. This is again the first game without Carl. What will we do without Carl? A couple of days later, epic battle in Indiana. This was great. Gainbridge Fieldhouse, not Conseco Fieldhouse anymore, of course. Back and forth battle. Epic. Anthony Edwards with 44 points. He did get 2 blocks in the game, but he also had one of the blocks of the absolute season. Unbelievable play. Oh man, it was a special play. Absolutely special block. Was it Naismith? Yeah, I believe it was Naismith going up for a play, and Anthony Edwards with an unbelievable block to wrap the game up, and it was one of the most exciting plays you ever saw. I mean, you know how you saw LeBron James make a big block late against the Golden State Warriors that helped kind of put the Cleveland Cavaliers in position to possibly win Game 7 on the road against the 73-win team, and pull their dreams away of being the greatest team of all time. I loved it. Anthony Edwards, kind of a LeBron James type of moment there, as he had a few blocks like that during the course of the season, because obviously Anthony Edwards became has become a really nice defender and making some big, dramatic defensive plays, a la the Jordans and LeBrons, making those big defensive plays. And this was a huge one on Naismith. Absolutely beautiful. And sent the Wolves to a sweep over the Indiana Pacers, close game or not. It was a wonderful, wonderful play. One of the highlights of the year. And Anthony Edwards' a statement there, like, yes, Carl's out, but I'm going to give it everything I got. And he did. Unfortunately, the Wolves would then lose to Cleveland the next day, 113. Oh, man, what am I pressing here? 113 to 104. That was disappointing, but what are you going to do? Wolves would beat Golden State again. We'd ultimately sweep them. A 106-91 win over Detroit. And then an impressive win against Denver. See, it's like, my God, amazing how the Wolves, this is like the statement of the year here. The Wolves were actually tied with Denver at the time, as obviously this was a very close battle between Denver and OKC throughout the course of the season for that number one record. And the Wolves would end up with the third out of the three, which is so annoying. But luckily, we ended up, advancing beyond any of these teams, and then still lost to the fifth-seeded Mavericks, which, again, sticks in my craw like you can't believe. Jokic, the Cyclops, with 32 points. Conley with 23. Anthony Edwards with 25. Just an awesome game in Ball Arena. A 111-98 win. One of the signature wins of the year without Karl Anthony Towns. Absolutely freaking exciting. Again, it was awesome. And then you follow it up with another loss to the Bulls, which is bull crap. We ended up getting swept by the Bulls this year, which is stupid. 109-101. I don't think anybody understands what the heck that's all about. The Bulls would pull away in that fourth quarter like craziness. It was stupid. I mean, the Wolves had the game. It was a close game, but the Wolves pretty much had it. And then the Bulls just kind of pulled away down the stretch. It was really disappointing with the last 3 minutes or so. The Bulls just said, nope. A couple of daggers by Caruso, who I don't think he missed a shot in the game. It was really stupid. He only, 7 of 8. That's what it was. He barely missed a shot. He shot 8 threes, and that's it. No two-pointers, and made 7 of them. It was stupid. Ended up beating the Wolves with those corner threes. Wolves win the first 2 games in April, 113 to 106, sweeping the Rockets. And then, splitting with Toronto, 133-85. Slightly different situation in Toronto than at the beginning of the year. No Pascal Siakam or really anybody else. They pretty much waved the white flag. Wolves would lose by 10 to the Phoenix frickin' Suns, who would end up being our matchup in the first round, which had us all terrified. And then you get past the Lakers with a 10-point win. Beat Washington comfortably, lose to Denver, which put us in dire straits of having home court advantage. In the first round, 116-107 loss in Denver. It was a frustrating game. Karl Anthony Towns had returned against Atlanta a few days before. He wasn't going to play in this one, and Gobert did play. It was a great job by the Wolves against the defending champions in this one, but ultimately Jokic would pull away and such. And this felt like a lot like the losses to the Denver Nuggets during the course of that playoff series. It was very dramatic. 109-106 win over Atlanta. Later on, pardon me, this is when Karl came back. I'm all mixed up. Yeah, Karl hadn't come back yet, but there he was. Great job by the, nice to see Karl back anyway. Wolves would win kind of comfortably over Atlanta, and then lose to Phoenix in crushing fashion. And it's like, no, then we end up having to play them in the first round. 125-106 loss to Phoenix in a game we tried to win, by the way, because you want that home court advantage. But then we end up sweeping Phoenix anyway comfortably. You know the history, you know the story. You can listen back to those episodes. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but it was a wonderful, wonderful series. The way the Wolves just kind of came out like world beaters in this series is absolutely awesome in those first 2 games. The second game was a bit closer, but the Wolves still got the job done. That's what's important. And then just demolished Phoenix in game 3. And then game 4 was very dramatic as Booker would wind up with 49 points. Was a pain in the butt the whole time. Was absolutely a jackass the whole series. Gained no new fans here in Minnesota. And Anthony Edwards, after shooting like crud for the longest time, he didn't really shoot like crud, but he wasn't as visible. That was the Denver game, pardon me. Yeah, he didn't shoot particularly well in the game, but then he just absolutely took over in this series. He absolutely took over in Game 4, still wound up with 40 points, despite the fact Booker pretty much was annihilating him for the longest time. But then all of a sudden Booker was getting stopped and getting denied the ball. Anthony Edwards was dominating, driving to the basket, and the Wolves ended up sweeping the Suns in crazy, exciting fashion. And Booker also again nudged, like hip checked, basically like a hockey term, hip checked Mike Conley into Chris Finch, which wound up with a patella tendon tear, which is insane, crazy. And Chris Finch would end up still being able to coach the team against Denver, but kind of from the second row for the coaches, the seats and such, but was still there. But Mike Inori was the guy up, moving around and blurting out instructions like coaches do, which is great. But everything. So obviously, Nori and Finch and the other coaches did a hell of a job against the Suns, and of course against the Denver Nuggets. They did a pretty good job, though. It was definitely a tougher matchup. Mike Malone and the defending champion Nuggets with the MVP of the league, who won the MVP again, in Nikola Jokic, an epic 7-game series where the Wolves looked like world beaters. Now the first game was a crazy back and forth, scary game, kind of similar to Game 7 in a way, but not really. Kinda. It was kind of a back and forth, but it looked like the Wolves were kind of sort of the better team, but could they hang on and finish it off? Anthony Edwards would end up getting with 43, which was so exciting in the game. Again, listen back to the series, the ups and downs of that series with those episodes if you want to kind of get the full vibe of those games. It was so much fun. 106-99 Game 1, 106-80, an absolute demolition in Game 2. The Wolves looked like they had sucked the life out of the Denver Nuggets. Absolutely sucked the life out of the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray lost his cool, threw a heating pad on the floor, and right on the court where Karl Anthony Towns, who knows, what if his knee buckled, what if his ankle buckled? It was right there where Karl Anthony Towns was pivoting his foot. Something could have happened, and I forget if Jamal Murray even got fined, but he certainly didn't get kicked out of the game or anything. I think no, he did get fined, because obviously you're going to get fined for something, but didn't get suspended a single game. And then the Nuggets would have 3 games between going from Denver to Minnesota. I even had a dream that night, or like one of those nights, like, wow, the Wolves are going to, the Wolves are going to keep beating the Denver Nuggets. It's going to be so much fun. I was in Denver riding my bike. And it's ironic how I was riding the same bike that would get stolen just a couple of days later. Isn't that creepy? Isn't that creepy? It's like, dreams are weird sometimes, so I thought I'd throw that in there because it's a true story. The same bike in my dream. I was riding it in Denver for some reason, just riding it around. It was a beautiful day, like, oh my God, we're actually going to beat these guys. And and I'm on the opposing side, right? And then a couple of days later, it gets stolen. Isn't that weird? Anyhow, the Denver Nuggets look like they're going to rip our hearts out. One of the most beautiful aurora displays in recent history. Aurora Borealis, for those of you that are here on the Western Hemisphere. Obviously, a lot of you were in Australia, but maybe you did have Australia, Aurora Australis as well. But I don't think they reached into Australia at the time. But I mean, we're talking amazing stuff. Even in the Twin Cities, where you got the city lights interfering with it. There's a lot of quote-unquote light pollution, as they call it. So mostly all we got to see was green, when there were many other colors involved, like the purples and the pinks and such, because it was such a powerful solar storm. That was the exciting part of the night. The bad part was because I had the phone outside and that beautiful, it was kind of chilly, but it was just a fun, cool night. The Wolves are just putting the damper on that one. The Denver Nuggets were putting a damper on such a cool night. Like, oh my God, we're going to take a 3-0 lead on these guys. We're going to sweep them, like Charles Barkley said, right? Wolves in 4, it's a wrap. No, it was crap. It was crap, just like rap is crap too. I said that on a Timberwolves Explosion podcast. Yes, I did. But you don't have to agree with me on that one. It's okay. Great Aurora display, but unfortunately that was the Denver Nuggets beating the crap out of us, 117-90. And it's like, okay, well, take it easy, Joey. It's a 2-1 lead. Calm down. And then the Wolves were, they had a chance to win this game. Game number 4 a couple of days later on Sunday, and then crap the bed again. It was unbelievably freaking frustrating. I believe I recorded the podcast right after that, and then it was between that time and sometime the next morning, the bike had been stolen. Yep. Happy Monday the 13th. Yeah, my bike was stolen. Just depressing, man. The same bike that I had a dream a couple of days earlier, riding it in Denver, Colorado. Really sad, actually. This game, the Timberwolves should have won game number 4, but they didn't. Game 5 was like Timberwolves went into Denver, and they just beat the crap out of us, 112-97. Felt like we maybe had a chance, but then it's like Denver was the better team the entire game. It felt like the Wolves were going to get beaten 4-1, just like last year. And then Game 6 was a completely different story. It was like nothing you ever saw. 115-70 win. Game 7, here we come. All right, sounds good. And then Game 7 did come. Denver was winning the whole night. The whole frickin' game Denver was winning. The entire game Denver was winning. And then all of a sudden, Denver wasn't winning, and the Wolves' defense started showing up. The Wolves started stopping Jamal Murray, who was killing us, just like Devin Booker in Game 4, a series earlier. Devin Booker was killing us. Jamal Murray was killing us in this one. The Cyclops was getting forced to throw up three-pointers that he was missing over and over and over and over, and the Wolves came back from a 20-point lead, 20-point deficit to the Denver Nuggets in the third quarter. Gradually, we started making shots. They started missing. And all of a sudden, I feel so much better. Oh my God, we actually have a chance at this thing. We actually have a chance. I went from a guy who was kind of like, what the bleep, cursing my head off like an idiot. And then it just went in stone silence. When you're just staring at the screen because you can't say anything, you just can't talk anymore because you don't know what to do. Okay, maybe they're starting to come back. And then they started to do so. Conley and such with their clutch shots, and it was just unbelievable. And Anthony Edwards, after shooting dog dookie for about 2.5 quarters, woke up, and all of a sudden things were happening. Karl-Anthony Towns was magnificent the entire night and helped wrap it up with a big offensive rebound and put back. And the Wolves would end up defeating the Denver Nuggets on the road in Game 7 for one of the signature wins in franchise history. As big of a win as it was against the Sacramento Kings 20 years ago on the same day, Kevin Garnett's birthday, 20 years ago, 20 whole years ago, May 19th, which also, unfortunately, was a day later, the anniversary of Malik Sealy's tragic car accident, where an idiot went down the wrong exit. A drunk idiot went down the wrong exit because he decided drinking was more important than, driving sober and using your brain. And we lost Malik Sealy the next day. That was a Garnett birthday type of thing. But obviously that happened way before the Sacramento series. But again, it's an anniversary that I think absolutely should be recognized as well. So Malik Sealy, moment of silence on May 20th, 2000. Miss you, Malik. Really do. Most similar guy on the Wolves roster today is Nickeil Alexander-Walker to Malik Sealy. So anybody that's young and doesn't remember Malik Sealy, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is similar. Not as smooth as Sealy, but I think he might have a more deadly three-point shot than Sealy. But whatever. Let's get off that. Maybe a little more athletic, but I don't know. But it was a great night where the Timberwolves, and my whole point that I was trying to make about the Sacramento series 20 years ago, to the day, this win was bigger. This was the biggest win in franchise history because you defeated the defending champion. Sacramento had never won a championship except for with the Rochester Royals in the 1950s. Yes, the Rochester Royals won the NBA title. I think it was like their only year in Rochester, but they won the NBA title. So that's why you see Sacramento with that gold dash on the back of their jerseys, because they did win a championship in Rochester, New York in the early 1950s. But it does count, folks. Just like the 1908 Chicago Cubs won the World Series. Yes, they did. They did. And the Washington Senators won in 34. That's so the Twins technically have 3 World Series as well. So, this was the biggest win in franchise history because you defeated the defending champion on the road with the league MVP as well, the reigning league MVP, and it was like 3-time MVP as well in Nikola Jokic, and a guy that has daggered you forever, Jamal Murray, for passing on him in the draft for Chris Dunn. Just like CJ McCollum, who's daggered us every time because we passed on him as well. So it's all related, believe me. These players don't forget this stuff. And that's why it happens. That's why they dagger you again and again and again and make you like it, basically. And rub it in. But this was the biggest win in franchise history. As for the Dallas series, obviously, again, my frustrations were very evident in the episode that I talked about the first two games. You can refer back to that. This is a very long first segment, but what do you expect with a team that goes to the conference finals? Of course, it's a huge season wrap-up. A couple of games, the Wolves it was just a back and forth, frustrating game with Dallas. The Wolves, every time you're up by 5, all of a sudden they're up by 3. And it was just a seesaw battle in game number 1 that the Wolves just ended up not finishing the job. Game number 2, the Wolves were up by 20 flipping points in the game, or was it 18, pardon me, and you just still found a way to blow that one. You even still had the opportunity to win the game. If you could have possibly denied Doncic the ball, maybe, possibly deny Doncic the ball and hope for the best. If someone else becomes open and maybe hope for some kind of turnover or bat the ball away or something. But unfortunately, Doncic was on Gobert, which is a mismatch. It's not because Gobert sucks, and it's not because Gobert is an idiot. It's because it was a badly strategized play by the coaches. It's on the coaches in that one. It was. So, no, it's not Rudy Gobert's fault. 109-108 lost, and a lot of us were like, bleep this crap. Game 3 was worse, right before Memorial Day, 116-107. It was just a slightly worse version of the first two games. Game 5 was a slightly better version of the first two games, where the Wolves actually made a little extra stop and made a couple extra baskets. Even though it was a lower scoring game, the Wolves were a tiny bit more clutch. And then Game 4 was pretty much it's over. Even though we're coming back to Target Center and we're going to be the first team in history to make the 3-0 comeback, no, the Wolves did not show up to play. It was a flat-out no-show. It was stupid. It was sucky. And it's a 5-game series loss, just like the Denver Nuggets or whoever. Anaheim Angels years ago with the Minnesota Twins. That was the other team that I was forgetting in 2002. So it was like 3 years in a row we had at least one team in the conference final round, the semi-final round, you could say. The 2002 Twins beaten 5 games to the Anaheim Angels, even though we had home field advantage and we were the better team. We just didn't show up and didn't get the job done. And Anaheim ended up being the better team, and they ended up winning the World Series in 2002. 2003, the Wild. You overcome the Colorado Avalanche, a defending Cup champion type of team, or did they? Yeah. Or they'd won the Cup just 2 years before, and they were still very much a contender. They had great players. The Wild ended up beating them in 7 games, and 7th game on the road, incredible fashion, just like the Denver Nuggets. So Game 7's in Denver. Minnesota has pretty good history. The Wild did it twice, and the Timberwolves have now done it once as well. That's pretty cool. So I think Denver is scared of Minnesota a little bit now when it comes to Game 7. What's the other one? Oh, yeah, and the Wolves, of course, couldn't get past the Lakers in 2004. So, yeah. Anyhow, it was a no-show type of a game. Anthony Edwards and Carl each at 28, which is great, but it still felt like a no-show for the most part. Doncic and Irving with Kyrie Irving, that is, Kyrie with 36. When you think Irving, you think of Julius Irving. So it's like, yeah, I think Kyrie, you just say Kyrie, and then Luka or Doncic, whatever. Even though we have a Luka and Garza, he's not quite as good at the end of the day. Mavericks would win in 5, but right now, Celtics taking a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals and probably going to win this thing. Well, they haven't taken the lead yet, but they have a solid lead here in the fourth quarter, so they have a chance to make this a fairly quick series with Dallas. We'll see how it turns out as we head into segment 1.5, which will be coming up next. So we're going to be zapping into the future here pretty soon. But first, before I wrap up this segment, and again, an unfortunate ending to the season, but still a successful year, yes. Just a very disappointing series versus Dallas, which I think the Wolves blew a golden opportunity for older players that, may not get this opportunity again. We'll see what next year brings, but I don't know. I hate talking about next year. I just want to talk about here and now when it comes to sports. Obviously, you look forward to certain players like Leonard Miller and, Jalen Clark and such, but we'll get back to them in a minute. The season awards, this one should be pretty obvious. Most valuable player for 2024, Anthony Edwards. Biggest disappointment? For the longest time, it was Jaden McDaniels, and it really was, but his incredible performances against Denver at the end of the day, and against the Phoenix Suns as well, but especially against the Denver Nuggets, Jaden McDaniels does not get the biggest disappointment. He was he definitely escaped that in a big way, and he does appear to be a household name coming up pretty soon. Biggest disappointment was Kyle Anderson when you consider how good he was just a year before and how valuable a piece he was. He came out this year and he just felt like he was a non-factor all year. It was weird. It was weird. Except against the Mavericks for some reason. He's a huge matchup problem for them, I guess. Why? I don't know. He just is. Biggest surprise was Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who also was a huge disappointment in the postseason as we got further in. He was great against Phoenix. He was mediocre against Denver and a no-show against Dallas for the most part. Very disappointing at the end of the day. So we'll see how much we're going to end up paying him in the not-too-distant future. But those are your awards. MVP Anthony Edwards. Biggest disappointment Kyle Anderson. Biggest surprise Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Again, looking like a guy you'd want to keep around for 10 years or more. With that said, we'll take a quick break, and we're going to look towards the future now, one way or another. But first, I guess segment 1.5 is coming up, where we will review the NBA Finals, baby. Are you looking for a really nice Timberwolves-related Facebook page out there with cool fans and a wonderful host? Well, look no further than Wolfpack from Flip to Finch, hosted by Scott Doherty. He does a great job. Scott Doherty's an awesome guy, and the fan base on there, obviously passionate about the Wolves, but also respectful of other people's opinions regarding the team. Check out the page. It's awesome. Wolfpack from Flip to Finch. Hello and welcome to the annual segment 1.5, something I invented years ago now because, of course, State of the Timberwolves is all about the Timberwolves, but we have to create a segment 1.5 to talk a little bit about the playoffs, NBA Finals, but mostly the NBA Finals. That's pretty much what it's all about. The Boston Celtics indeed win the championship 4-1 after losing Game 4 in a rout after taking a 3-0 lead in the series. And, Game 4 was Game 5, was kind of similar to when the Mavericks came into Target Center and killed us. Unfortunately, that was extremely frustrating. But in this case for Boston, they got to be the home team. They got to be the team that was up 3-1, and got to win at home in this case in a pretty strong fashion. It was a close game to start things out, but ultimately the Celtics pulled away. Jaylen Brown wins the MVP. Boston Celtics win their 18th championship of all time, making them the number one team ever. Didn't realize the Warriors were actually third all time, which is crazy because obviously they have 3 other titles from the past. Back in the day, one of them going way, way back into ancient history in the NBA. Obviously, the Lakers and Celtics both have ancient championships, including five in Minneapolis. Thank you very much. So, LA, technically, the city of LA, does not have 17. They have 12 championships. But 12 is pretty good. It's still pretty damn good. It would still be second all time, technically, one way or another. It's crazy to think if you just count Minneapolis itself. Like, say, it goes to Timberwolves history, we'd have 5 titles and we'd be tied with the Spurs. Wouldn't that be cool? But unfortunately, the last one was like in the 1950s. So, whatever. Boston Celtics, what a team. What a complete team. Kind of similar to 8 in a lot of ways. And 9 and 10. But, 2008 when it had a complete team. Older players at the top. This time around, it's younger players. So, they have a little staying power. Maybe they can win more than one title, hopefully not at our expense. Kristaps Porzingis, of course, again had that weird injury, which is kind of like the side wall of your knee, sort of. It's like some, so that was a strange one. Unfortunately, Porzingis, a very unique injury. So that was kind of the unfortunate side of that, the rare injury. So again, it's it's one of the stranger ones. Again, it's like a wall type of thing, and the recovery period is long, but he was able to play through it a couple of minutes anyway to be able to play in this final game. Kind of like how, it's like if you had a chance to finish things off, it's like as long as you're okay, go out there and get it done. I guess you might as well. So that's the cool part. I had it before. I knew what it was, and unfortunately, I don't know why they're not calling, why they're not saying what it is exactly, but luckily everything kind of worked out for Porzingis to at least play a few minutes and be out there playing when things took place. So it happened during Game 2, and he was sidelined for Game 3, him being Porzingis. There it is, Medial retinaculum. Retina column, which is again on your side. So kind of like a It's very strange. Allowing dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon, or that one, that one thing. That thing? Yeah, that's kind of what it really is. Porzingis was always a tough matchup for the Timberwolves, so it would have been interesting if the Timberwolves wound up getting to the finals. If a lot of people annoyed locally, seeing how the Celtics were exploiting a lot of things the Timberwolves probably could have exploited with the Dallas Mavericks. That's where a lot of us are kind of annoyed with how things have turned out here. And, it's a damn shame. The Timberwolves probably could have been in the NBA Finals. And, Boston Celtics have been my number 2 team since the early 2000s, at the very least. I think actually back to 98 actually is when I started realizing Boston Celtics are my second favorite team in the NBA. Just Boston sports in general. The Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics. Just, something magical about Boston, especially the Celtics. The Larry Bird era, the Kevin McHale, all those guys. But a wonderfully put together team. Obviously, some additions that were brought in, like again, Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, great addition to the team. Obviously, in the off season, was a huge asset all year. Unfortunately, did miss some time, and then again missed time at the end. It's an injury that does require a long, unfortunately, recovery. But hopefully, Porzingis will be playing next year at some point. It's not going to be like 3 years or something crazy, and then he ends up having to retire. I don't think Porzingis is the type to retire or anything at this stage. This team does have some staying power. Again, hopefully not at the Timberwolves' expense. The Drew Holiday addition was obviously a huge thing. Absolutely huge. The minute that the Celtics got Drew Holiday, I'm like, I still remember getting that knot in my throat. Why am I picking the Milwaukee Bucks to win the NBA title? Why didn't I pick the Celtics? How stupid. It was like right away, like I made a mistake. Oh, I did. The Bucks were good. They were fine. And then they got stupid and fired their coach right away, and then brought in a guy who, well, he coached the Celtics to a championship, but yeah, that was 1 year. That was one time. I think Mazzulla, the young guy with Boston there, has some staying power as well. I always loved Drew Holiday. I almost forgot that he started out with the Philadelphia 76ers. Almost forgot about that. Several years with the New Orleans Pelicans, but, off and on missed some time, especially his first couple of years with the Pelicans. Back in 14 and 15, those years, he missed like half the season. And then he'd miss like 15 games, 10 games, whatever, but he was always such a, valuable player. Just loved him to death. With the Bucks, obviously helped them win the title in 2021, when they overcame the Phoenix Suns. What an awesome addition. It's like, man, if he stays healthy, they have a chance, offense and defense and all that grittiness and such. And then, man, it's like Drew Holiday goes to the Celtics. You can talk about Dame Lillard and Dame time and all that cute stuff all you want, but who gives a crap about Dame Lillard when it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks? They have their championship. Dame Lillard is, I shouldn't say who gives a crap about him, but sometimes it's not about the star getting a star player. It's about getting the right player. And Drew Holiday was that right player, pardon me, for the Boston Celtics. I'm clearing my throat a lot because I just had a victory cigar for the Celtics, kind of an hour of Red Auerbach and all that tradition and all of that. So pretty damn cool. I'm seeing Jaylen Brown being interviewed, but it's on silent, of course, on NBA TV, which, it's nice to see Jaylen Brown with that Bill Russell trophy. God rest his soul. And, of course, we talked about Bill Walton, or we will be talking about Bill Walton in segment 2, Bill Walton and Jerry West, who recently passed away. Very, very recently passed away. Bill Walton on Memorial Day, and Jerry West just the past week or so. So big losses for the NBA. So we'll see how things go. Charles Barkley also retiring from broadcasting after next year. So we'll see how that all turns out after TNT possibly. Things move on to NBC. We'll see how that all turns out. We're here to talk about the Celtics, though. Again, great run, great season. Great finish. They were the best team all season. So it's kind of like I was scared to death about the Timberwolves about the Timberwolves playing the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. I believe the 2008 team also won 64 games, if I remember correctly. And again, it was a very deep team. Very deep team overall. Where that was that Boston Celtics. A lot of sorry, I just want to get this out here. Pardon me. Oh, they won 66 games that year. Wow, that's a lot. And the Pistons won 49 or 59. They were really good too. It was actually, I remember that being an epic conference final with Detroit. Poor Flip Saunders. I felt bad for him, seeing him not get it done. But it had to be one or the other, Garnett or Flip, right? Blanking though on something. But yes, it was that was all I was going to say. But it was a very complete team. A lot of veterans, top to bottom. Obviously, they acquired Ray Allen first after drafting Jeff Green, the Boston Celtics. They drafted Jeff Green, traded for Ray Allen. So Jeff Green wound up with the Seattle Supersonics, who would eventually be the Oklahoma City Thunder, teaming up with Kevin Durant, who would form a pretty formidable team for a while there with Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City, getting to the, being a dangerous team, eventually getting to the finals and losing to LeBron James. We'll move on from that, though, quickly. But again, a deep team. They had P.J. Brown, all those nice players. It was a very likable Boston team. Well, maybe not likable, but likable to a point. Obviously, Paul Pierce could be very clutch. Ray Allen was a great shooter. Garnett was, Defensive Player of the Year. And when things were going well, Garnett's offense would pick up as well. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yes. But obviously, Garnett had his great moments. He was the most talented player, but he wasn't necessarily the go-to guy. When Garnett didn't have to be the go-to guy anymore, it got real interesting for sure. And you hope and pray that Anthony Edwards was watching this NBA Finals, and it's like, all right, that's going to be me, that's going to be us very soon, possibly as soon as next year, and that's what we hope that will be the case for Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves going forward with this, after watching the Boston Celtics get the job done here. Again, happy to see them win, very, very much so. Definitely not cheering for the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving, a very good sport there at the end again. Congratulating a lot of guys and all that. And we'll see. Obviously, the annoyance and frustration is Dallas is going to be as hungry as ever because they got to the finals and lost. Timberwolves hopefully as hungry as ever because we got to the conference finals and lost. So a lot closer. Will it be similar to the Celtics years ago? Remember my emotional attachment. Hopefully they beat the Warriors in 2022. They looked so good, and then everything just started falling apart. Game 4 and beyond. It was insanely frustrating watching the Celtics choke away that NBA Finals. I mean, I was freaking pissed. If you want to listen back to that segment 1.5, 2022, I think that one went on for like 45 minutes. I'm so mad. Maybe it was closer to a half hour, but it was maddening. This one should be a heck of a lot shorter. It was a much shorter series. You just wish that the Timberwolves could have, taken care of business versus Dallas, maybe a 5 or 6 game series, and then hope and pray to God maybe somehow, some way we could overcome the Celtics. Upon watching how good this Celtics team is top to bottom, it would have been really tough. But maybe, just maybe, the Wolves could have made things insanely interesting, and maybe, just maybe, So we have to live with that for now, and hopefully that's coming very soon for the Timberwolves. Maybe we won't have to have such a dangerous team waiting for us from the Eastern Conference. Maybe we'll get a team like New York or Indiana in the finals, and there's a good chance that they could be the Dallas Mavericks instead of, they could be the Dallas Mavericks team to our Celtics, if you know what I'm trying to get at. Brad Stevens certainly looks more like a president of basketball than a coach, doesn't he? Did a heck of a job as president of basketball. It seemed like they got better right away when he left the bench to become the president of basketball operations. Looks a heck of a lot like Joe Mauer, doesn't he? Brad Stevens, yep, the Pobo there in Boston, replacing Danny Ainge, who moved on to Utah not too long after that. Pretty crazy. He's doing a decent job there, but we'll see. Danny Ainge was a pretty good president of basketball, but he was a little weird at the same time. Al Horford, that's another guy you're insanely happy for, that he finally got a ring after all those years. And again, I mean, obviously there was a ton of emotion with some of the main guys. Obviously, Brown seems a bit more kind of level-headed, the more level-headed type. Tatum's the more emotional. He's kind of the Karl Anthony Towns. I can imagine Karl getting insanely emotional, or maybe Anthony Edwards. Well, Anthony Edwards is probably more emotional than Jaylen Brown, I'd have to say. Jaylen Brown, a pretty cool character, but sometimes you got to have that fire and ice combination. But yeah, Al Horford, insanely emotional afterward. He wasn't like necessarily crying his head off, but he was insanely happy, that type of thing. A guy that, going all the way back to the summer of 2007, when the Timberwolves traded Kevin Garnett, Al Horford, as a rookie from the Atlanta Hawks, a draft pick, from the Atlanta Hawks was a candidate to possibly come to Minnesota. So it's crazy to think about all that full circle. That Al Horford, that was one of the other scenarios that Kevin Garnett would wind up in Georgia with the Atlanta Hawks, closer to his home there in South Carolina, his original, his original stomping grounds, Garnett, that is, the Garnett trade possibly to the Hawks. That Al Horford might have been the main piece coming back. Well, we did get Al, but it was Al Jefferson, who's unfortunately again long gone, long retired from the Boston Celtics at the time. So it was just a straight up deal with that. It was Garnett, so there was no Hawks. It was the actual Celtics themselves. Yeah, it was no Hawks. It was the Celtics. Al Horford actually is, believe it or not, a year younger than Al Jefferson, 1986. Yet he's still that old. He was the third overall pick. I remember being insanely young and thinking, well, he's completely unproven and this and that. And the forecaster definitely brought that up pre-Timberwolves explosion days. But it was definitely an interesting time, man. He played a lot of years in Atlanta, him being Horford. Obviously, great career, great defensive player, good rebounder, shot blocker, all that good stuff. But at one point, averaged almost 19 points a game with the Hawks. They definitely had some success, but never anything major. Celtics, obviously, Horford was very good with them most of the time. And then left Boston after 3 years for the Philadelphia 76ers. Was with OKC in that 2021, that weird, year. And then OKC, isn't that weird? He was on the OKC Thunder and then went back to Boston as an old veteran. They lost the NBA Finals. That sucks. They lost the Celtics, the NBA Finals to the Warriors. And then 2 more years, and there's the championship in 23-24. So, again, happy times. Happy for the Celtics. Very much so. And hopefully the Timberwolves can get the job done, and we'll see what happens going forward. But Boston Celtics definitely were the best team the entire season, and they are the reigning, kings of the NBA now in titles yet again. It's crazy to think, but way back in 1986, the Boston Celtics won their 16th championship. And my gosh, it's been, all these years later, they've got 2 more since then. Still 2 more than the Minnesota Timberwolves and several other teams out there, like the Hornets and such, that don't have anything. So, far be it from me to get all crap on the Celtics for only winning 2 titles since 1986. Minnesota Twins only have 2 titles since 1987, and that's all we've had ever, basically, here in the Twin Cities, outside of again the Minneapolis Lakers. So, it's just crazy to think about. Championships are hard to come by, and again, obviously the Celtics' success going back into the 50s, into the 60s with the 8 titles in a row, which is absolutely nuts. Winning a couple more in the 70s. What was it, 71, 74, and 76? I mean, they won 3 titles in the 70s, which is weird. Like, people don't think about that. Crazy to think about. Havlicek, John Havlicek, that was the Havlicek days where he was the young guy at the end of the 60s Celtics, and he was there in the 70s. And then it's crazy as bleep to think Havlicek, obviously he was on the Celtics, and obviously second half of the Celtics, 60s Celtics. He won multiple titles. Crazy to think that John Havlicek was almost like minutes away from being teammates with Larry Bird, at least for 1 year in that first year, 79-80. Isn't that the darndest thing that Havlicek could have played with Larry Bird? He could have gone from Bob Cousy to Larry Bird. That's like, that's crazy. It's like Babe Ruth to Mickey Mantle, it's just the darndest thing. That's kind of almost what it's like in a way. Or Bill Russell to, but like Cousy was really old. I mean, he's a really old guy and he's still kicking, God bless him. He's in his 90s. Isn't that just crazy? So hang in there, Bob Cousy. You got to see another championship. Man, isn't that cool? Too bad Bill Russell obviously not there to see it, of course, but a lot of guys aren't there to see it. Red Auerbach and others, of course. But obviously some beautiful history. And again, John Havlicek was there, but I think he retired. He was there in the training camp, with Larry Bird his rookie year. And then Havlicek retired. He's like, I can't do it anymore, basically, and just kind of walked out. That was it. And Bird was really looking forward to playing with the old, wily veteran who'd been there during the absolute glory of glory years in NBA history when it came to the Celtics. It was like the Celtics ruled the league, literally. And John Havlicek was there. One of the most famous calls of all time Johnny Most, of course, the Boston announcer that passed away way back in 1990 because, I don't know if he smoked a lot or what the heck the deal was. He died, a long time ago, 1990. But Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over. Very famous, very famous call. So, yeah, Havlicek stole the ball. That was one of the final plays of NBA Finals, and the Celtics went on to win it. So pretty cool. No doubt about it. I know Bird had the steal by Bird. That was a big one as well to knock out the Detroit Pistons. I think that was 87. So unfortunately, that year did not deliver a title, but it did deny the Pistons from winning anything that year. And Pistons would have to wait another year to get to the finals and lose to the Lakers in a grueling 7-game series. So lots and lots of retro vibes here. Is the Drew Holiday with his goggles, on his hat there, after being sprayed with probably champagne all over the place in the locker room. So, yes, boy, back in the day, there was a lot of champagne drinking in Boston, a lot of cigars puffing away, and gotta love it. So, if it sounds like I'm whispering a little bit, it's because I kind of am. So, my apologies if it's kind of annoying audio. I apologize. I mean, my wife has gone to bed, so at the time, I'm recording this right after the Celtics won it. So, congratulations, Boston Celtics, segment 1.5. 2023-24 in the books. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, State of the Timberwolves 2024, segment number 2. Time to look at the future, or whatever you want to call it. Mock drafts, free agency, possible trades, some news that's been taking place the last, obviously the last couple of weeks or so here. So, first of all, I might as well acknowledge a few big legends that died recently. So, we'll start with Bill Walton, obviously an amazing career he had as a player, starting back with the UCLA Bruins up to the Portland Trailblazers, won an NBA title in 1977, and of course won a title in 1986 with the Boston Celtics. Obviously, again, hampered by off and on injuries throughout his career, kind of played through pain most of his life, which is unfortunate. Interesting guy, definitely kind of a hippie. Obviously, if you look at him, you can tell he's kind of a hippie. Bill Walton III. So, man, think of how old the first was. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. La Mesa, California native, November the 5th, 1952. Died at only 71 years of age of cancer, apparently. So, did not, unfortunately, have all that long of a life, which is a shame. Again, amazing career in UCLA, quite a winner. Started in October 1974 as an NBA player. 13.3 points a game. 10.5 rebounds. He was a pretty good defender and shot blocker. Played with a passion that was definitely there. You think of him as this laid-back kind of hippie guy, but as a player, he played his ass off. But again, unfortunately, definitely hampered by injuries throughout his career, which is unfortunate, but still made it to the Hall of Fame and such, and was considered one of the greatest of all time. He was certainly in that NBA at 50 deal, so obviously crazy and cool. Missed a couple of years over the course of the time with foot injuries, which is crazy. 78, 79 didn't play. 80, 81 didn't play. 82, 81, 82. He played with the San Diego Clippers after his run with the Portland Trailblazers ended, apparently, after 78, which is kind of a shame, only a year after winning the NBA title. He was the MVP of the league as well, but then missed that whole year and then resurfaced to the San Diego Clippers, so back to Cali he went. Never did play for the Lakers. Of course, San Diego moved to Los Angeles to become the LA Clippers in 1984, and that's where he played. And then a couple of years with the Celtics, 85, 86. That was a great season, of course, for the Boston Celtics. It was their last championship until the Garnett, coming up. So obviously this is a very Celtic-centric episode in a sense, if you know what I mean. You can imagine why. Yeah. The Celtics, obviously, with Garnett and all that. Again, it took all those years from 86 to 2008 to win a title. And then, of course, all these years later, find that like another one. So definitely some spans in between for the greatest in NBA history there for the Celtics. Only played 10 years in 86, 87, or 10 games, what am I talking about, in time for the postseason, but then ended up not playing and walked away eventually the next year. So, yes, but an amazing career. And, of course, again, an entertaining person. Was on Barrero at least once a year. Definitely had a lot to say all the time. Entertaining, fun. Yes, he can get political sometimes, but not that much on the air. Not all that much. Not necessarily like up bashing people, just kind of giving points of view. So he wasn't necessarily an aggressive political person, but definitely a hippie type. Different nicknames: Big Red. Obviously he's a redhead. Big Red, Grateful Red, Red Baron, interesting Redwood because of the tight Chief, and Solar. So he was a very solar guy, right? I'm just kidding. But no, an entertaining person, obviously Bill Walton, so huge respect to him. We also, again, had a huge loss here with Jerry West, so definitely a much, obviously older player going back into the 60s. Believe it or not, he was drafted by the Minneapolis Lakers, but never actually played here. Went on to be with the baby blue LA Lakers, did Jerry West from West Virginia. Jerry West from West Virginia, the NBA logo. So two, again, massive losses for the NBA. And, they always talk about coming in threes and such, so we'll see. I'm not wishing anybody any death here, but I don't know, I guess it happens a lot. 27 points a game, so definitely great numbers. Of course, Hall of Fame and top 50 and top this and top that. He played for West Virginia as well. Drafted by the Lakers, number 2 pick overall. Only one NBA championship, of course, because they ran into the Boston Celtics a million times. That was a huge thing. Unfortunately for the Los Angeles Lakers, they ran into the Celtics over and over and over and over in the 60s and got beat every time until finally they won the title in 1972, them being the LA Lakers. Jerry West played for the All-Star game every single season of his career. Every single season of his career. What do you think of that? So that's pretty appropriate for an NBA logo. He also retired at 35, a la Larry Bird. So a lot of he didn't play super long, only 31 games in his last season, but still averaged over 20 points a game. Obviously, Jerry West was a hell of a player, no matter what you say. I mean, no matter what era is what I'm trying to say or whatever. He was one hell of a player, and consistency was a huge thing as well. He did miss some time, but obviously not as much as Bill Walton, who was maybe, I don't know, just kind of a combination of his size and some bad luck and this and that, unfortunately, for Bill Walton. Jerry West, though, absolutely nuts career, absolutely nuts. He was an all-star every single season of his career from 1960 with the LA Lakers, the first year in Los Angeles, and 73-74 with the LA Lakers. Never played for any other team, of course, but unfortunately, again, years later, got frustrated with how things are going on in Los Angeles as they basically the president of basketball or general manager or whatever did end up trading up to get Magic Johnson. That's what they did. Of course, acquired Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a few years before that. Put together the 80s Lakers, the Showtime Lakers, hired Pat Riles, or whatever you call him. The Showtime Lakers, Jerry West was the leader among that, of course, with the owner, Jerry Buss, who drove the bus. Yeah, that was a good one, right? See what I did there? Again, was a part of the Memphis Grizzlies for an extended period. Put together a pretty nice team there as well. Brought in some old school coaches along the way as well. But they did fine at Memphis. And then also was a consultant with the Golden State Warriors. Actually was pretty helpful there. And you notice how they had some pretty good success, much to my chagrin, because I'm not a fan, of course. But again, not a fan of the maybe the old school Warriors, of course. When they first had that broken bridge logo, that was cool. But many years later, not nearly as big a fan. But all due respect to those of you that are, it is what it is. I have nothing against you unless you drive me nuts and try to rub it in my face. But great career by Jerry West. It's about Jerry West here, of course, much more so. Again, played in the era where there was no three-pointer, obviously. Bill Walton did play in the era, but you don't really think of Bill Walton in three-point shots. You think of maybe blocking shots and getting those tough rebounds. And what an amazing passer he was Bill Walton. So we're going to kind of backtrack between the two. I was always entertained by Bill Walton, where he's like, oh, horrible pass by this guy, because, well, Bill Walton was like, he was an amazing passer. He was probably one of the few. He might have been the first big man that was like an outstanding passer. Like there were good passing big men. Even believe it or not, Wilt Chamberlain was a pretty good passer. He was. But Bill Walton was amazing. Did I say Bill Walton? Wilt Chamberlain? Did I say Wilt Chamberlain? Wilt Chamberlain was a great passer. But yeah, Bill Walton was an outstanding passer. Knew how to, it wasn't just about scoring and rebounds for Bill Walton and maybe blocking a shot or two. It was about some damn good passing as well. But so he had the right to say horrible pass by whoever. Horrible pass by Garnett. No, I don't think he ever really said that one as much. But I just had to say that just to be silly. But yes, that's always was entertained with him as a color commentator. I remember fans actually booed him a little bit when he was announced as one of the top 50 players of all time, and then they changed, started cheering, and it's like, okay, that was weird. I'm not sure what that was all about. It was funny, I guess, to a point. And my brother was like, yeah, it's because he's with NBC, that's why. They're like, yeah, well, yeah, we'll cheer for him for that reason then. Because that's what it was back at the time. In, what year was that? Way back in 96, 97. When it was Marbury's rookie year and Garnett's second year with the Wolves with our new logo and uniforms at the time. Entertaining era for us, of course. Both of these guys were definitely there for that NBA at 50 celebration and 50 greatest players of all time. Very, very deserving, and both will be missed greatly. Jerry West did live to 86. Bill Walton, unfortunately, only made it to 71. So it's crazy to think how far back Jerry West goes, for him to be that much older than Bill Walton. So, he was basically stepping away from the NBA when Bill Walton was starting. Isn't that the darndest thing when you think about that? And they died within a couple weeks of each other. So, definitely unfortunate. Bill Walton and Jerry West, going to give both of them a moment of silence. Yeah, I'm sorry if you may. So I had to open up this segment with that. Wanted to make sure I got that in this episode. So now we'll get to the future. The Timberwolves definitely had to look to the past a bit some more. So, again, wanted to get into that and pay my respects to two of the greatest of all time. So, as for the NBA draft, again, you know what I mean? It's like how much research can you do as you go forward? You're looking at the 27th pick in the draft. NBA mock draft, NBA draft.net has the Timberwolves taking at 27 Pacom Dadet, small forward out of Francais. So he'd be an international player, 6'8", small forward. But see, my whole point is here, it's not about I'm going to sit here and research players and try to give you some kind of expert opinion, because I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert, okay? So, it's just plain and simple. My quote-unquote expertise is kind of like the current team, and you could say anyway, and the needs of the team. And going into this off-season, be it the draft or free agency, I'm not sure, or a possible major trade that could happen, as the Atlanta Hawks have definitely been possible connection with the Timberwolves here. They have two possible major point guards available. But that's the position I think the Wolves really need to focus on here, because at this stage of Mike Conley's career, going into 36, 37 and all that, and you saw how he was starting to break down later in the season. Mike Conley should not be the starting point guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves if we are serious about winning an NBA title here in the next couple years. He should not be. Should not. He should be the backup point guard. And he's getting, he gave us a fairly decent discount, or, maybe it was an appropriate amount of money when you consider where he is, him being Mike Conley at this point of his career. It's time to it's time to look at the future when it comes to the point guard position. Not saying, Mike Conley, he should just play like 5 minutes a game, or we should just dump him or whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. If it's somebody super young, it would kind of be like maybe a platoon, or somebody that maybe might not be this big-time star or anything, and Conley obviously will deserve some minutes still. But it should be at least a platoon, if not Conley kind of taking the Gary Payton with the Miami Heat role when they won the title in 2006, them being the Miami Heat, of course. Gary Payton, taking that Gary Payton backup role, that really good veteran point guard that can still give you some good minutes, but not be counted on as a starter and playing major minutes. Mike Conley has no business playing major minutes in this point in his career. As healthy as he is, and as much of an athlete and specimen as he is, you saw what happened. You saw how he started to break down, and of course magically in the postseason, and that didn't help us. A lot of the reason why the Wolves played so weird, basically, why Conley played so weird in some of those games against late in the series versus Denver and pretty much throughout the Dallas series, because he was breaking down. And Timberwolves need to have somebody younger and still a very talented player at the position that can play at least half of the minutes. I gotta say, I don't think Mike Conley's going to be offended if he plays 20 to 25 minutes a game versus, 28 to 36 minutes a game. I don't think I want that as the Timberwolves general manager, coach, president of basketball, whatever. I don't think it's a good idea. And we got to sit him out now because he needs to rest, this and that. And yeah, you can do that, but if you're playing him less, him being Conley, I know I keep saying this guy and this guy. If you can play Conley less, I think it's a better thing at the end of the day. So where do we go for the point guard position? Bring Me the News brought up possible trade idea. This is obviously not anything eminent or anything, but there's conversations out there. If you're looking to possibly move on from Karl Anthony Towns, because numbers indicate, these have been brought up on Score North and other, like Mackey and Jod and how Flagrant Howls, that's the Timberwolves podcast on Score North, of course, that Karl Anthony Towns' playoff numbers throughout his career are inferior to his regular season numbers. And that's kind of been a consistent thing. And with Karl getting closer and closer to 30, we're not really sure that's going to improve anymore. Where clearly Anthony Edwards actually steps up his game in the postseason, which is pretty exciting. So when you consider how good Anthony Edwards was during the regular season, when you see how much he stepped up into the postseason for the most part, it's exciting, especially when he was only 22 years of age. So that's insanely exciting. The Atlanta Hawks, are they considering, this is again, Bring Me the News, are they considering blowing up the Trae Young and DeJounte Murray backcourt? And I think that's a good idea if they do. What's the point? How often have these, two point guard backcourts really won anything? DeJounte Murray's a bigger guy, and that's kind of who I want the Wolves to go after. Trae Young can't play defense at all, where Murray actually does have defensive capabilities, and he is a bigger guy. I think that would be an awesome deal right there if you're able to get DeJounte Murray and still have Mike Conley as a backup who would get significant minutes as well. Maybe they could play together a little bit, but not that much. A little bit. You can do that. It's an alteration. Maybe you spell Anthony Edwards and you want to keep Murray out there, so on and so forth. It's ideas that you come up with. According to Bill Simmons, it's a possibility. Again, this is Bring Me the News, or is it SI? I thought this was I guess it's Bring Me the News, sharing it from SI. Interesting. Okay. Very strange. Joe Nelson. Joe Nelson's with Bring Me the News, but I think this is SI. That's why I couldn't find it on actual Bring Me the News when I kept digging. What could a cat trade with the Atlanta Hawks look like? So a possibility is Karl Anthony Towns to the Atlanta Hawks. We would get DeJounte Murray and also Bogdanovich. Timberwolves would also get Bogdanovich, who could be a nice shooter, of course, for us. That would also fill a need, as the Timberwolves do need some more outside shooting. Murray and Bogdanovich. So that would be pretty cool. Fans Nations All Hawks have 3-team trade. Towns to Atlanta, Murray to Minnesota. Yeah, Bogdanovich, of course. Towns goes to the Hawks. Okay, I think we covered that 15 times already. The Hawks would also get Marcus Smart from the Memphis Grizzlies, so that would be a nice addition that can help again. Probably a good fit, I guess, but yeah, you get another point guard back, but that's okay. Memphis Grizzlies would receive Clint Capella and Sacramento's 2025 pick, protected 1 through 12. So that could be a really good trade for the Timberwolves if you end up doing that. Obviously, you lose Karl Anthony Towns. Naz Reid would then be slotted into the power forward position alongside our guy, of course, Rudy Gobert. And I think you'd get more minutes for certain players that probably should get a chance to play, because really, what the heck are you doing if you're not going to play them? And maybe, as we can hear this holy cow. Okay, hopefully that would be DeJounte Murray and Anthony Edwards in the backcourt next year. Plowing. Okay, yeah, plowing through the Western Conference to the NBA Finals next year. Good timing, right? That could hopefully be the Timberwolves train going through the Western Conference into the NBA Finals and maybe beat the Celtics. The Celtics might not be as hungry after, being a lot hungrier this year, we'll say, at the end of the day. So, yeah, that could be pretty exciting. Grizzlies would get a defensive center to pair with Jaren Jackson Jr. Yep, that would be against Clint Capella, a guy who I've been a huge fan of. I wouldn't mind moving Rudy Gobert for Clint Capella, actually, as well. But I don't know, the salaries wouldn't add up in that one. But see, this trade, though, when it was checked on the trade machine, ESPN trade machine deal, that, yes, the money does add up. So this would work. This trade would work. I don't think they would put this out there if it didn't, because obviously you do have to come within a certain parameter to make this trade. And any trade in the NBA, and multi-team trades can get bigger. You know, when you're involving a third or fourth possible team, it can get more and more complicated because, first of all, you have to match enough for it to work. Secondly, the teams have to actually agree with it. Like, okay, so we're getting what, and we're giving up what? No, get out of here. Like, a lot of times one team might be getting screwed over in the trade if you know, just to match things up properly. And then they'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. So there's always that possibility. But we'll see what happens. I think this trade could potentially help all three teams in a certain way. Obviously, the Hawks would get Karl-Anthony Towns. He might be outstanding there. And you pair him with Trae Young. Wow, possibly if Trae Young ends up staying there. The Wolves get DeJounte Murray. You absolutely have a point guard of the future, a point guard of the present, so to speak. Yes, and you still have Mike Conley as a nice, solid backup. Unless you want to include him in the trade, but you still have him as a nice, solid backup, possibly. And I think Wolves would like to keep him around because why the hell not? So this could be cool. And you get Bogdanovich, a guy we've been interested in. The Timberwolves were interested in DeJounte Murray, actually before Tim Conley got here and all of that, the offseason leading into that. So there were possibilities at the time, way back, that the Wolves were interested in Murray before he wound up with the Atlanta Hawks, and that could have been very exciting. But, well, it still might end up being exciting. You get a 20 points a game guy. He's not a dynamic three-point shooter, but he's still above average, like 36%, Murray. But then Bogdanovich is like a 40% kind of guy. And, well, you have a dynamic point guard to go with Anthony Edwards in the backcourt. So Anthony Edwards won't have to, like, run the show, so to speak, as the playmaking guy all the time. Not that Conley isn't capable of being the playmaking point guard, but at the same time, you know, you can't play him major minutes. You just simply can't. So that's kind of like my number one approach here is some kind of deal like this, even more so than any draft or free agency. So that's why I'm kind of leading off with this, outside of, again, paying my respects to Jerry West and Bill Walton, of course. So one way or another connected to California, right? One is actually from California and one played in California. Anyhow, why am I getting back into that? But, yeah, it'll be interesting. You have a front court of Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert as the starters. And, of course, Murray with Edwards, Conley, and Bogdanovich coming off the bench. So there you go. But you also still have Leonard Miller. You might end up including one of the guys, like one of the two, like Miller or Josh Minott. But I think I'd want those guys in a 9-man rotation playing. I think so. You know, Conley's the point guard. Minott and Miller, the two M's, I guess you can call them, would be... Yep, I think they could be in a 9-man rotation. Oh, and then you still have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, so then there's 10 players. So somebody might end up getting included in that trade as like, you know, hey, that's a little, yeah, we would love to take a flyer on Josh Minott. Like maybe you have to make a decision. I think the guy who probably projects to have a better career is Leonard Miller. But Josh Minott certainly does have a lot of energy and could be something. What's the other Luka? Luka Garza, not Luka Doncic. Luka Garza, of course. We'll see what happens with that. So the mock draft. What were the different kind of mock drafts here? Again, I'm going to admit that I did not dig into the draft prospects as much because I don't think these guys are going to help this team that much right now. So it's like this is not like just a couple of years ago when the Timberwolves still had a fairly high draft pick and we could possibly do something when it wound up being the Walker Kessler and all that. So, and that was fun. So I'm just admitting it right here. But point guards, obviously, you know, Trey Alexander has been connected to the Timberwolves. This one, NBADraft.net, has him going 35th to the Spurs. So we'll see. I think the Wolves, I mean, that could be a guy you look at. A possible, again, point guard of the future. Wendell Moore Jr. is a point guard, but he doesn't really offer much of anything. Really good defender, but he can't shoot and this and that, though he did shoot well in his final year in college, but hasn't done much since. So Wendell Moore Jr., I don't think too many people are all too excited about possibly getting him. Trey Alexander is a 6'4" point guard out of Creighton. Creighton, who's had some NCAA success at times. This guy is from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, of course. Go Thunder. No, screw the Thunder. Yeah, I know. I'm not a big fan right now for obvious reasons. They're a competition, you know. His intangibles are ranked pretty high. They rate him as an overall 91, so that's kind of good. Passing skills, 8. Curious to see how he would... so they're comparing him to Alec Burks or Andrew Nembhard. Okay, well, Alec Burks, okay, so smooth, big point guard, nice length and shooting ability. And yes, so again, 6'4", so he's a longer guy. DeJounte Murray's 6'5", so again, I'm a big fan of his with the Spurs and with the Hawks. Spurs especially, because that's when he was the main guy with the Hawks. He's kind of like, you know, a co-point guard with Trae Young. Kind of weird situation there. And it's not like they're on the cusp of an NBA title in Atlanta. In fact, they're not even close. They're in the play-in every year. So if you're in the play-in every year, you're not really all that serious. It's nice that you get there, but you can't even get past it. That's the other thing. Trey Alexander can shoot, though. You know, he's ranked 8. He's NBA ready for the most part. He's got some decent leadership skills. Not very strong, but again, his overall size and length are rated very high as well. So that might be who I'm hoping for if the Wolves are looking for a point guard of the future in the draft. Or maybe, again, we'll just see how that turns out. But it seems like in this day and age, rookies don't play much. Like, have you not noticed that? Like, look how much the rookies played. I mean, Josh Minot, in 2 bleeping years, barely seen the light of day. You know, Leonard Miller barely saw the light of day for the Timberwolves last year, and he's like, oh my God, we got Leonard Miller. The other good news as well, though, when you look into the future with the Timberwolves, is Jalen Clark. He was the best defensive player in college basketball coming from UCLA. It's a pretty big school, pretty big name school. So Jalen Clark is another encouraging, intriguing player coming in. It's kind of like a bonus draft pick in a way, because last year he didn't play a lick with the Achilles tendon injury later in the season with UCLA. But looked on as the best defender in college, in all of college. So a team that prides itself on good defense the past couple of years here, since going for Rudy Gobert in the trade back around July 4th, 2022. We're sitting here, you know, with a possible great defensive, like, swingman, shooting guard in Jalen Clark coming in. That's another huge option as well, and he's actually got offensive abilities as well. He definitely could cut to the basket, extremely athletic. So Jalen Clark is another extremely intriguing player that could be coming into camp, and it's like, okay, so we're going to see players move on, I think. You're going to see at least one or two young guys possibly moved in a trade that, say, you know, especially like possibly a sweetener with Atlanta and Memphis, should such a trade happen. It might not be the Memphis Grizzlies. It might be straight up with Atlanta. It might be a completely different team included. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But that's kind of how the future seems to look. I think the Timberwolves are looking to improve in the backcourt. Other people believe there's no way that the Timberwolves actually move Karl-Anthony Towns. So if that's the case, again, I mean, somebody somewhere is probably going to get traded. There's probably going to be at least a minor trade of some kind. Like, if it's not a major blockbuster, Karl-Anthony Towns, DeJounte Murray, that's more of a blockbuster. And it could happen. I mean, Tim Conley's not afraid to make big trades. He's not. Again, Trey Alexander is probably who I'm personally endorsing here as the draft pick. Again, I mean, it's not an ironclad, like, oh my God, I can't wait. Jay Mitchell is another one that people have been talking about for the Timberwolves. He's kind of a combo guard. AJ Mitchell, they have him going to the Jazz. He's also 6'4". Not rated quite as high as Trey Alexander. Not as much of a pure point guard. So that's the other thing. But still doesn't mean he's not going to be something. NBA ready is rated as an 8. Ball handling is an 8. Passing is a 7, at least according to NBADraft.net. He's compared to Lester Quinones. So, all right. Lester Quinones, not necessarily a name that we all think of when we think, oh my God, our team's going to get much better. So, we'll see. He's a junior coming out of University of California, Santa Barbara. Yeah, I don't know why I said Barba. What's wrong with me, huh? So there's another draft, The Ringer. NBA draft, The Ringer, of course. They have the Timberwolves taking KJ Simpson out of Colorado, also a junior, unfortunately. Ben Conley's going to be 37 before the next year. Durability issues. Simpson would be the perfect guard to bring along as long as his backup and a possible future starter who pushes Conley to a bench role that would demand less of him. Yeah, see, that's kind of what I'm thinking here. Absolutely. So they see him as a small guard with an it factor about him that impacts every facet of the game. With Colorado, a school people have actually heard of. Yeah, I know, I'm just kidding. 19.7 points a game, 3-point percentage of 43.4. He does also get 6 rebounds a game and averages about 5 assists. So he's kind of, again, like he's a combo. He's kind of a combo guard, despite the fact that he isn't even 6'1". So that's kind of interesting. Almost 22 years of age. He'll be 22 by the time the Wolves start playing again. A wingspan of 6'4.5". Okay, so he's very long for a 6-footer. Weight of 187, of course. Spicy shot creator. Yep, that's what people like. That he's a little. Yeah, they don't like that he's undersized. Will be targeted. So there's one thing to worry about as well. He'll be targeted by opposing offenses. So that's something to worry about. Might be tough defensively. Might be tough to deal with. But this guy is actually a really good defender. So that's interesting. Yeah, he constantly fights on the ball, so looking to kind of knock the ball away. That's kind of cool. So it's a combination. He might be targeted because of his size, like beat up, but he is a good defender, though, on the other side, on the flip side. So kind of contradicting a little bit in a way, but nothing major to complain about. He's good at moving off the ball as well. Maybe he could do some catch and shoot. So, especially the fact he's almost a 44% three-point shooter in college, though. So, we'll have to wait and see. He averaged just about 5 threes a game, 3 attempts a game. So, but really nice three-point percentage and almost 6 rebounds. That's pretty good. So, you got to like that. Yeah, there's something there. So, KJ Simpson, again, so that's kind of where I'm looking. I mean, you want to probably draft a point guard, even if the Wolves make a big move for DeJounte Murray, well, still probably look for a point guard in the draft, unless, of course, the draft pick is traded away. It's included. I hope we don't have to give up a trade. I hope we don't have to give up a draft pick in the trade. Hope not, because I think we've given up enough draft picks. It's like every other year we're going to have to be like, second round. So, again, thankfully you do have a franchise player in Anthony Edwards, hopefully a franchise defender in Jaden McDaniels, another franchise defender in Rudy Gobert, as long as he lasts in this league. So that's kind of where I'm leaning in the draft. Trey Alexander is a guy I do like. The Simpson guy, yep, he's an intriguing idea. I'm trying to see where they took Trey Alexander in this one. They have the Wolves taking, this is in the Ringer, they have the Wolves taking Ryan Dunn, Virginia sophomore. He's like a swing man type of a player. Small, very small forward at 6'6". So another good defender. So that's good. Big bruising defender. And that the Wolves could certainly use his help. Yeah, so 214 at 6'6". Okay. It's not that big, but big enough, I guess, that he could be a factor. I'm not seeing Trey Alexander in this one. Maybe he went higher, actually. And I wouldn't be surprised, because they have Bronny James going to the Lakers. That'd be nice for them at 55th. So that would be perfect. So it's like there's no crazy team like trading up and taking him like number 2 overall or something, because LeBron's going to come. LeBron's almost 40. As good as he is, as good as LeBron is, he's almost 40. So you got to look at it that way. Well, where the heck is Trey Alexander? I don't know. That's really weird. You probably saw him and he shot by, but there's that. It doesn't really matter. But that is a player that I am intrigued by for the Timberwolves to go after. I've seen something of him, but again, I can't tell you that I'm this draft genius going in. Free agents, well, LeBron James, he has a player option. Boy, oh boy, he's only going to make $51.4 million, and he's a billionaire already. So he needs the money. We all know LeBron needs the money. So get your donations out. Paul George also 48.8. Boy, he's going to turn that down. You just know that. Klay Thompson is a UFA. I don't think he's going to be making 30 or 38 million. Tobias Harris. So these are all guys. There's no way the Wolves will go after these dudes unless there's a big, what do you call it? There's a big, some kind of huge trade where we clear up a bunch of cap space, and I don't see the Wolves doing that. Wow, that's interesting free agents, though, at the end of the day. Klay Thompson, Tobias Tobias Harris, James Harden, Pascal Siakam. Yep, he does have bird rights as well, but yes. Gordon Hayward, Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, I wouldn't mind. Well, no, let's move on. He's older. He's older than Mike Conley. I remember they were on the same team with Memphis many years ago, and I was obsessed with Kyle Lowry. Like, yes, Tim Conley's the guy, so give us Kyle Lowry. Make a trade. Get him. That'd be funny if they wound up on the same team again. It would be hilarious. Gary Trent Jr., UFA with bird rights, but he's going to make some money. Narco Fultz, he's 26, but man, how many more injuries does he need? Jeez. Malik Beasley, I don't know. Non-bird. I don't know, man. And I don't know how much money the Wolves would only have like a salary cap exception anyway. I don't think Malik Beasley comes back to Minnesota for a salary cap exception. Alec Burks, that's one of those guys that they were talking about. $10 million a year. James Wiseman, RFA, restricted free agent with Detroit. Royce O'Neal, UFA, interesting. Not sure the Wolves will be going after any of these guys. Not really. Nicholas Claxton, he's pretty talented player. He's going to be capped restricted free agent, right? No, he's an unrestricted free agent. That'd be nice, but I doubt it. Miles Bridges. So I'm not really going crazy over free agency either because, like 99% of the Wolves' history, they're over the cap, at least since Garnett got here and signed his deal way back in 97. The Wolves have dealt with salary cap issues most of the time. Not the whole time, of course. Garnett was gone for a while, extended period, obviously. But we got into cap crap later. Kevin Love, that's funny. He has a player option for only $4 million with the Miami Heat. $4 million, Kevin Love. But he's also 36. So there's that. Drummond is only 31, or will be turning 31. He's a restricted free agent. Or no, he's an unrestricted free agent. Pardon me. $3 million, Andre Drummond, 31 years old. Yeah. Especially if the Wolves make a trade for Karl Anthony Towns, bring in a veteran like Andre Drummond for a couple mil, $4 million or something, $3 million, 2.5. 1 year. I mean, why the hell not? That's something. That's something. Patrick Beverley, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. I'll pass. Hard pass. Swipe left. Alex Len is 11 years in the league already, and I don't remember the last time he did anything other than he blocked somebody's shot once, maybe. That's about it. Wesley Matthews, he used to be good. He was a good defender, a 3-and-D guy, but he's 38. JaVale McGee, he was great on Shaqtin' a Fool. Provided some energy once in a while. Tristan Thompson was good in the NBA Finals in 2016, but ever since then. So, I'd probably try to make a move on Drummond, possibly. Josh Richardson, gosh, a player option of 3.1. Remember when Josh Richardson looked like he was going to be like an outstanding player in this league? It's just weird, isn't it? Josh Okogie, he was always annoyingly too small, wasn't he? Drove me nuts, and he would be a little too aggressive and get in foul trouble. I don't know. Yeah, he'd just be 26 years old going into next year, making $3 million player option with the Suns. I don't know. It's a player option, so maybe he's going to stay. Dennis Smith Jr. never amounted to anything. Too bad. He's supposed to be good. So all these weird guys, you get further and further and further. Thanasis, yes, the younger brother of the other. Yep, he's the younger Greek freak. Cam Reddish, only 2.5. I really liked him, but he can't stay healthy either, can he? God, I loved Cam Reddish in that draft a few years back. Gosh, he'd only be 25. I'd love to get Cam Reddish. I would love to get him. And look at his salary, less than $2 million or less than 2.5, and then his player option is 2.5. If Cam Reddish opts out and the Wolves can bring him in, okay, but will he play? Will he stay healthy? I don't know. Maybe the Wolves roster is kind of set because of a lot of reasons. AJ Lawson's on the Wolves roster, restricted free agent. I almost forgot about AJ Lawson. He's with us. Yeah, that guy. Chris Dunn. He didn't even make $2 million last year, and he's already 30. What the hell? Time flies. Sure does, doesn't it? So we're kind of digging deep here. So trades. Trades and stuff, and maybe a cute move like an Andre Drummond move might be a possibility. when it looks to the future for the Timberwolves going into this, this off season. So that's kind of where I'm leaning and stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, point guard position, and then maybe add a big man of some kind to replace, not literally replace Towns, but like have to be in the rotation, possibly. Otherwise, Leonard Miller, Josh Minot, you maybe make a move in one of those two and keep the other one. Or you keep them both. I'm not sure. But that's kind of what I want the Wolves to do, again, is balance the roster a bit, getting a stronger point guard with a much larger future going forward than, of course, Mike Conley, who's at the end of the road. So with that said, I think that all makes sense. Now it's time to hear what all of you have to say when it comes to the draft. Well, maybe not the draft as much as the Wolves. Maybe some of you might have some draft opinions, I'm not sure. But when it comes to the Timberwolves, again, going into, they're in the regular season and such, the MVP, biggest disappointment and biggest surprise. With that said, we'll be right back after this. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, the third and final segment of State of the Timberwolves. It's a big one, as you noticed, so probably by now, again, congratulations to the world champion Boston Celtics. So yes, you'll notice as I dig into Twitter, it's going to be dated a bit, unfortunately, because I didn't do a show in between, after the Wolves got down 2-0 versus Dallas all the way up to the release of this show. So it is what it is. Hopeless Wolves fan is again ranting on the changes of the lack of adjustments by the Timberwolves coaching and players and such. Says it's hopeless. Oh boy, zero change in rotations or approach. Yep, agree with that completely. That's kind of what was happening. I was saying it's embarrassing. This was after the first 2 games. He said the square peg will fit into this round hole. I swear. Yeah, that's what it felt like. Vinrock at Vinrock44, that'd be Vince Germano, says any danger Town gets to work inside. Yeah, it's like what's the problem? Yeah, I was thinking it's a complete joke. He's become Chris Webber. Vinrock responds with Vince again that says Towns is as weak as piss. Yeah, Random Hoops, that'd be Reese Pedretti, says Cat is so frustrating. Hey. Yeah, very much so. Vince says, big time. He could do so much damage inside, but he just wants to shoot threes. Yep, and that's kind of Chris Webber-ish, which is really annoying. That's where I was kind of comparing Towns for a while. It was like Chris Webber. Again, this is dated. So once I get past kind of the Dallas part, I will then get to the season wrap-up part and then continue other comments, or I could just kind of go whatever. I guess it doesn't matter as long as you get to hear how things turned out with who went where in terms of the seasonal awards, according to you out there on Twitter at TWolvesEX, at TWolvesEX. I don't think there's any replies on Instagram. We'll probably do a last minute or last second check when the time comes. Sorry, distracted by something here. Interesting. That's why they call it Instagram. Anyhow, yeah, you don't need to know. I'm just kidding. No, it's nothing super bad. Tanae Brown at Tanae Wilson Bro, of course, out of New Zealand, says right now I think the Wolves should throw Luka Garza in on the Reed minutes. Yeah, Naz Reed really struggled versus the Dallas Mavericks. It's like sometimes I forget about that myself. It's like it's already been about almost a month since the Timberwolves got knocked out, or at least it feels about that, 3 weeks or so. So again, apologize with the delay on the release of this one. So much, so much has happened since then. And again, at least particular since halfway through that series, as there were so long waits in between games with the NBA Finals and all of that, like 3 days sometimes. It's kind of ridiculous, which a lot of people don't like. Okay, today, I'm sorry, I'm babbling way too much. Right now, I think the Wolves should throw Luka Garza in on the Reed minutes. Reed takes Towns. Towns is an absolute mess. Might be the knee, whatever it is, he's struggling too much. Yeah, that Dallas series, Towns really struggled. I was saying he drives me nuts. Unreliable for $50 million. Tanae responds with, and Vince, before you tell me to calm down, they got to try something because the status quo isn't working. Ha ha. And Vinrock says, calm down, mate. And he's laughing. Well, it did. Yeah, I'm frustrated. Well, yeah, and Vince says, as crap as Towns has been, you're still in it. Yep. Kirk Anthony Towns, that would be Cat Stop Fouling. Yep, I like that one. And the hashtag, the name is Trade Him. That's funny. Kirk Anthony Towns. Yep, I'm like, yeah, that's like Kirk Cousins. Very similar in that sense. Hopeless Wolves fan. So what was I ranting about here? Because he said been saying that for about 6 years. I said, yes, yeah, Kirk Anthony Towns. And then I quote tweeted that one. I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. He's Kirk Cousins in a Timberwolves uniform, overpriced and will never win anything. He'll tease you enough and let you down in the end. Hopeless Wolves fan says, been saying that for 6 years. And I replied with, yes, sir. So, yep. Hopeless Wolves fan said, thank you for the quote on stars. I appreciated that. And yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yes. Okay, I see. Hopeless Wolves fan is saying, bleep this entire team and organization. Just bleep the bed top down. Bottom guys trying like hell to fill roles left by the big hitters, but they can't keep up. Not their job. Just pitiful and embarrassing. Typical Minnesota. I was saying, nailed it. This series was there for the taking and was completely given away by the quote-unquote stars. And he said, yep, thank you for the quote-unquote on the stars. I appreciated that. Yep. And it's like, it's true. So, continue there. I mean, yeah, that Dallas series really sucked. So you could kind of tell how frustrated I was all the way through the first segment and such. Yep, Tanae Brown is showing a tweet by Wolf10. He was saying, just a gut punch. Yep, up by 4 with 3 minutes and 37 seconds in Game 1, up by 5 with 1:29 in Game 2, up by 2 with 5:05 in Game 3. And saying, yep, the Wolves had their chances all series long. All series has come down to late game execution. The Wolves just haven't had it. And not to mention Game 2, they were up by, they were up by 5 with 1:29. That was ridiculous. Yeah, they were up by like 20. I think it was like midway through the third quarter or something. It was ridiculous. It was kind of like a reverse Nuggets. So stupid and frustrating. Thick and Nugget, give me a follow. I better give him a follow back. Interesting name there. Thick and Nugget. Thick and Nugget. Welcome aboard, Thick and Nugget. Yes. I was saying something like, this is no place for sensitive fans. If you can't handle booing the team, get the heck out of here. They deserve it for tonight's no-show. Yeah, that was Game 5, I believe. Yeah. And a lot of people like that. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. Yep, when the Wolves won Game 4, yeah, it was like better execution late in the game. That's all it takes, honest to God. No reason the Wolves should be down this much in the series. Too bad the Timberwolves couldn't do a Edmonton Oilers. At the time I'm recording this segment, the Stanley Cup Finals still aren't over. Florida was up 3-0. Yeah, it's tied. Game 7 Monday. It's like the longest series of all time. When it would have, could have looked like, should have looked like the shortest series of all time. Pretty wild. Yeah, and then my quote was, fun season, nice run, but absolutely shitty Western Conference Finals. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The Celtics will destroy the Mavericks in the finals, and that ended up being pretty true. And I was like, and I hope they do. Luka made no new fans in this series, certainly not me. Were there some responses? I do believe. Oh, yeah, I was saying I like Greg Anthony and Sam Mitchell on NBA TV. Obviously, I'm partial to Sam Mitchell for so many reasons. I've loved him as a player here. But what's great is they actually talk basketball. They're not looking for attention like certain other people who shall not be named. Yeah, okay, well, I can name them now. TNT. Yeah, they like attention. I like just basketball conversation. I think a lot of that TNT is just a big bunch of hullabaloo. I know all of you love it. It's the greatest thing ever. And I don't really watch Inside the NBA. I don't. Oh, my God, sacrilege. I don't really watch it. You know why? Because they're looking for attention. I'd rather just hear basketball conversation. You know, is it that great? I don't know. I mean, some of it's fun. Like Shaqtin' a Fool was fun and such, but that's not enough to get me to sit and watch it for like an hour after a game or whatever. No, it's like, let's see, I could play a retro video game. I could watch, I don't know. I could watch YouTube videos of other things. Yeah, I could. And I often opt to do that. Did I say that? Anyway, Tanae Brown said, that series reminds me a lot of when the Vikings lost to Philadelphia in the conference finals. Full of confidence going in and absolutely shit the bed. I'd hate to see them do a Kirk Cousins-esque move now. Wolves are so close. Yeah, like kind of go all in for somebody who's never won anything. Yeah. Exactly. Never won anything. Like Kirk Cousins, yeah, he hadn't even won a freaking playoff game, and he was like 30 already. And the Vikings, that was a mistake. So it was a mistake. Like that's not even, a hot take. It was a mistake, and I think the Atlanta Falcons made a mistake too. Check out the Purple Mafia podcast. Why not? Purple Mafia. It's called Purple Mafia, Minnesota Vikings. Anyhow, Levi Brown out of New Zealand says it was a very good season, and they surpassed my expectations going into the start of the season, but a very disappointing and frustrating end to it. Exactly. Especially when other than tonight, we were in a decent position in the fourth to win the other games. Yes, every single one of them. Game 5 was the only bad one. Kind of like Game 5 in Boston when the Celtics just beat the crap out of the Mavericks, and they should have too. Mavericks kind of look like idiots most of the series anyway, because maybe they kind of are, and we just made them look like more than what they are. Anyhow, Vince Germano says, got me stuffed why he doesn't. Let's see what's going on. Oh yeah, this guy, Shams Charnia. After a run to the Western Conference Finals, the Minnesota Timberwolves and President Tim Connelly have agreed to restructure the contract, locking him in for next year. Sources tell me, and John Krasinski, Connelly's opt-out clause has been moved to next year. So, yes, and then Vince is like, it's got me stuffed why he doesn't or won't sign for longer. Supposedly, it's the whole ownership. So that's good. I'm glad you wrote this, Vince, because it can kind of trigger that conversation, get off the Dallas series now. At least I think so. And move into the off season and such, and into a pretty important thing called ownership. So it's because the ownership situation is kind of up in the air, and supposedly that's what's going on. I think, most people would agree that Tim Connelly would prefer to work for Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez and Michael Bloomberg, who if I did not mention in the first segment, I think I did. Or right after, maybe into the second segment. I don't think it was the first segment. First segment was pretty much just straight up basketball conversation this past year. Michael Bloomberg, obviously multi-zalty billionaire out of New York, like 100 billion range money. Like he could buy the Timberwolves, quite a few times if he wanted to. How he's joined that group that does not change things for the arbitration case, but it could be. If as long as Lowry and Rodriguez win arbitration, that can help seal the deal for ownership, like the vote and such later on, where people won't be like, do you even have the money to run a basketball team? Do you even have it? That kind of thing, and they could vote him out. So that's an interesting conversation. Michael Bloomberg is another reason where things could get interesting and such for Lowry and Rodriguez in a positive way. As for Glenn Taylor, the whole point is Glenn Taylor just doesn't have much of a vision. He just doesn't have much of a vision. He never even he thought his whole attitude was basically like, a guy like Mike Conley would never come here. Well, that's kind of a defeatist attitude, isn't it? Isn't that kind of why the Timberwolves never won Jack Bleep in the Glenn Taylor era? So that's why everybody, basically, including probably Tim Connelly, would prefer to have the Lowry and Rodriguez owning the club. A very New York state of mind when it comes to the Timberwolves if that happens. Vikings ended up with the Wolves, which I think is okay. That's a New York or New Jersey state of mind there. So they didn't move the team or anything. They may have, I don't think they made any major threats of moving the team, and I don't see these guys making any major threat. It sounds like the NBA would highly prefer to have expansion teams in Seattle and Las Vegas anyway. Those are obviously the two main sites where the NBA would like to move to via expansion or relocation, but highly preferring expansion. They get a lot bigger, like the ownership and everything throughout the NBA gets a lot bigger pot of gold, so to speak, when it comes to expansion versus relocation. They pretty much get nothing for that. Whereas there's a huge entry fee and such, and when you buy in, you buy into the league. Seattle Supersonics, which I hope they'll be called, and the Las Vegas whatever. We can't call them the Aces, I guess, and that's totally fine. Hopefully they can come up with something pretty cool for the Las Vegas Athletic Dunkers. I don't know what they're going to be called. The gold bricks, the Outlaws, I don't know, the Outlaws. They might even be the Utah hockey team. We'll see. But, the Venom or the Outlaws. But whatever they're called. yeah, that's where the NBA would prefer is their expansion. Unfortunately, it feels like it's like 15 years away. God, but it's like 4 or 5 years away. I'm not sure why that is. Why don't they just get on with it? Like, what's the holdup, really? I don't understand the holdup, honestly. Continuing, I'm babbling again, and that's how I roll, I guess. Tony Brown says, I think the Timberwolves MVP will be Anthony Edwards for the next decade. He's laughing. Yep, so now we're in the season wrap-up area. I'm going to switch over a bit here so I can have the poll and then get your comments underneath those. So, your MVP, yeah, and I posted a logo idea. Doggone it. Everybody's like, nah, that's okay. So, yeah, you probably saw it. Anyhow. Oh, yeah, I was posting some other some frustrating things, too. Yes, this conference finals loss marks the 8th consecutive defeat for a core 4 men's Minnesota franchise at the semifinal level, like conference finals or American League Championship Series in baseball. 8th consecutive defeat, so we couldn't get past, core 4, baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. Yes, like Wolves and blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. I was saying it's pretty ridiculous, so we can't seem to get past the third round or semifinal level. This route needs to end. 8th consecutive. Do you realize that? Tanae was saying, this reminds me a lot of when the lost to Philadelphia. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so it goes all the way back to, after the Twins won the World Series in 91, we've had teams losing in the conference finals ever since. That started with the 98 Vikings. So for about a 7-year period, we didn't have teams even coming close to that back in the day. The Wolves hadn't even made the play. Well, actually they did, but they got beat in the first round right away. There was no hockey anymore after the North Stars left for a while until the Wild reemerged and blah, blah, blah. I've said enough. Next, Bill Walton blocks Kareem Skyhook. That was pretty cool. That was actually quite impressive. Michael Bloomberg agrees to join Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez ownership group to purchase Timberwolves, the Athletic, and nobody liked or responded, so that's interesting. Who is your Timberwolves MVP? Yep, 90% went to Anthony Edwards and 1% to Rudy Gobert, not Al Jefferson. And yes, Tanae says he thinks Anthony Edwards should get it for the next decade, and he probably will. Probably. Doggone it, now I just screwed this up. Okay. I posted a logo idea. I think the most unique part of this logo that I posted is the Timberwolf image on the basketball. And I personally was like, that looks really cool. See, I actually had the basketball, and I slid that Timberwolves image onto the basketball on PixArt. And it's like, that's kind of cool. So that might be part of a new logo going forward. Maybe you guys don't like the font too much. Maybe the background, maybe the explosions. I thought it was okay, but I understand, I just think that Timberwolves Explosion probably needs a new logo. It's been probably almost 10 years already. Hank McCoy, what a great logo, though. It's awesome. And just in case by some, miracle he's listening, of course, Courtside Podcast. He used to listen. I'm not sure if he listens to podcasts at all anymore. Haven't heard from him in forever. Just in case he's listening, if you want to post up a updated version of that logo. I'm kind of looking for blue in the background. It's the white. That's partially why I'm trying to move off, trying to move forward. I'm looking for more of a blue look. Maybe it's not unique. Maybe it's this or that. But white to me is the least unique thing you could have. That's that's the only complaint I had. When Brave the Wild got a new logo, initially the logo actually was a white look, not the forest green color, or kind of forest greenish color, green, or whatever green that is, darker green color. And I was like, is there any way we could change that to green? And then when the guy did, that would be Pavel Bennett, coming out of Czechia, who's obviously a supporter of Brave the Wild, and they make a great website called MNW Young Guns, talking about Minnesota Wild prospects. Wow. I mean, that logo ended up being absolutely gorgeous. So, I mean, it was like, oh my God. People saw that and they're like, that's the one. And it was. So, yes. So, any ideas out there you can do? Otherwise, I'll probably monkey around some more with PixArt. See if I can come up with something. I've been kind of busy lately, of course. It's been raining way too much here, which makes lawn service harder. You get behind, and when you actually do work, the work is harder. The grass is thicker, the grass is taller, the ground is softer, and it's annoying, and it sucks. And yeah, you get behind too. Like, say, if you can't work at that time, and plus having a main job as well, yeah, it's just annoying. So that's one of the reasons I haven't did a video game flashback. I haven't done jack squat. Also, the game I've been trying to do. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is turning out to be a little bit of a headache to do a review on, more than I thought it would be. And I got kind of I got kind of burned out on it for a bit. So we'll see if I even release that one. I might change to something else. We'll see. I'll probably release it, though. Anyhow, Jerry West died at 86. West was a 14-time NBA All-Star, 2-time Executive of the Year, Hall of Fame class 1980. Okay, am I ever going to get to your guys' wrap-ups? Okay, actually I did. The Anthony Edwards 90%. Sorry if this is dragging on. I really am. Who is your Timberwolves 2023-2024 Timberwolves biggest disappointment? No comments. That stinks. But, only 2 players got votes, or 2 people got votes again. And I had, I only had 3 players and other please comment, which probably is lame on my part. That I didn't have a third, but I guess there weren't that many disappointments in a good year like this. Shake Milton dominated, 83.3%. I can understand that. Kyle Anderson, 16.7%. So a few of you, and then Jaden McDaniels and other please comment did not. Jaden McDaniels, that would have been in the regular season. I should have put that, because he was disappointing in the regular season. I thought very disappointing in the regular season. But Shake Milton, yeah, I think a lot of us had high hopes, and we could have really used a dynamic. Some help with a solid, some solid point guard play behind Mike Conley. Maybe he wouldn't have gone as worn out, burnt out, broken down as the year progressed. So Shake Milton, yeah, that's a pretty good choice there. I think I picked Kyle Anderson, which may have been a mistake. Yeah, it sure looks like it. Shake Milton dominated. The last one, who was your Timberwolves' biggest surprise, for this past year? Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I believe I picked Walker. Whoops. And then Jaden McDaniels in the playoffs dominated with 75%. Naz Reid got 25. Other and NAW got zilch. But so there it is. Congratulations, Boston Celtics. And I think I misspelled something. Yeah, World Championships. No, World Champions. But I think it was, how it's spell check and it updates. And then once the tweet went out, I'm like, what the hell? So I look like I might not be somebody who speaks English normally, so my apologies for that. Nothing against people that English is their second language. It just looks funny, that's all, when you do something like that. So my apologies. The Celtics have been my second favorite team. This is another for over 20 years, yet I'm not as emotionally attached this time around because the Timberwolves were so close to actually playing them in the finals. So it's like I was looking at the Celtics more of like a potential enemy that could, dash our hopes more of than my second favorite team. Like, yay, go Celtics, where back when the freaking Warriors beat them in the finals. That bothered me. It really did. Yeah, it was very frustrating. Timberwolves had a very good series with Memphis that everything went down the tubes after taking a 2-1 lead. We couldn't freaking finish games after big leads. It was really annoying. Kind of like this Dallas series. We had leads or we were close and we just couldn't execute in the fourth quarter. Next, Tanae Brown responded with, I checked out of this season once the Wolves lost. Yeah. My first jersey was a Celtics one. Ooh, and they were always my second favorite team. Boston has just won so much. Hopefully we're back next year, and I hope so too. I hope we actually get to the finals. Out of curiosity, Tanae, which Celtics jersey is it? Don't tell me it's Garnett, but maybe it was. I don't know. It was a while ago. But my first Celtics jersey, not my first jersey. My first Celtics jersey was Paul Pierce. Going back over 20 years ago now, in the very early 2000s, pardon me, but I think it was 2001. Paul Pierce, yep. And I still have it. I don't know if it fits anymore because, I don't know if it fits anymore. Yeah, I think you could fill in the blank there, literally. So, yeah, sucks. I need to be thinner. I do. I need to be thinner. Okay? I do. Don't get me wrong. No, I was saying, don't get me wrong, emotionally attached or not. I'm having a victory cigar, just like Red Auerbach. Victory cigar for the Celtics, like I was joking about earlier a few episodes ago, I believe, when I was previewing the postseason. For the Celtics, as I type this, if it's not the Timberwolves, I will take the Celtics winning a title any day. So that's it. There's your fan interaction. Yep, I want to thank you guys so much. I mean, you're the awesomest, and truly, Vince Germano, Melbourne, Australia, Tanae Brown, Levi Brown coming in out of New Zealand, both of you guys. Benzo, maybe you voted. Hope to hear from you. I understand if you're busy, maybe just kind of checked out, kind of like, but I'm guessing you're listening, coming in out of the Bronx. Awesome, dude. Just absolutely great. Maybe Lucas Quayle still listens from South Dakota. Haven't heard from him in eons and eons and eons and eons. And when I listen back to those old State of the Timberwolves, going back to 2010, 2011, 2012, and I hear names like that, it's like, I missed you guys. Nigel Southern, I do believe you're still out there. I've seen your name pop up a little bit here and there, and I think you mentioned off and on that you still listen, but yeah, it'd be nice to hear from you sometimes. I mean, I miss you a lot. Reese Pedretti, Brisbane, Australia. Again, Nigel Southern's also from Australia. I believe he's a little bit. No, yeah. I think he might be around Vince's age. I'm not sure. Something around there. But more of he's Gen X. I know that much, which is a good thing. I like Gen X. And no offense to you younger people at all. Just saying. I'm totally happy with my generation. I don't want to be anything, unless it's further back, like way, way back in the day. I don't know, but that's just because I'm old school, I guess. But mostly it's like older Gen X. Like you got to appreciate the 70s a little bit coming into the 80s. That must have been freaking cool, man. And you actually appreciate it, like, oh, that's old. Turn that off, No, turn off the new stuff and put on the old retro. Any day of the week. Music, video games, movies, and even sports most of the time. But still good to keep up with this, I guess, as long as you see teams like Boston win and not the bleeping Warriors. And I don't think I want to see the Nuggets win again either. That's okay, especially after this last series. Did they not piss you off enough? So, did the Nuggets not piss you off enough? Did the Suns not piss you off enough? Or at least just one guy named Booker. Book him in the county jail for being a jerk. Yes, being a jerk. Lock him up for like 6 hours or something. You can sit there and stew for a couple hours and then come out and, I don't know, stop being a jerk. That'd be great. Okay, enough babbling. Thank you again. God bless all of you. Really hoping things go well here, and we will have a draft and free agency conversation in the next episode. Always enjoy doing that show. It's fun. Loved doing it last year. Loved doing it 10 years ago. Timberwolves Explosion, this train's going to keep on rolling. Luckily the numbers finally went up this year because the team got really good. So things are back in a decent place. Dare I say this is nothing to brag about at all, because every other podcast that's kind of a podcast out there has better numbers than I'd have to say. But at least Timberwolves Explosion is now in the top 5% for overall podcasts, like on the planet. So that's cool. It's awesome to be able to say that top 5%. Again, top 5% is not elite at all. You see, Score North, they're like in the top, I don't know if it's 2 or 1%. That's really high up there. And they're just a local podcast. They're not like some national thing. So, some of those nationals is like 0.3% or something. So that's when you get talking huge numbers. So at least Timberwolves Explosion is in the top 10%. That's always a good thing. If you can hang around it there, at least it's ranked somewhere. Somewhere. That's when, you're at least somewhere a little bit in the podcasting world, whether you're making a penny off of it or not. So that's, one thing to talk about. Things moved up a bit, particularly later in the year into the postseason. So it was top 10 and then it became 5. So that was nice. We'll see if that lasts or not. I don't know. Maybe after my babbling here, it'll drop down into like the top, it's in the top 80%, it's okay. So again, thank you again for listening. God bless all of you. And we'll be back in a few weeks to update things with the draft and free agency.